Defense made a motion for a mistrial. Prosecutor was up to some fuckery. Potentially damaging evidence, no basis for it. The judge specifically said, do not ask that question. Do not use that as evidence. She walked right down the path and asked the question. It may be over on Tuesday morning. Batman Bruce Wayne bitch snitch. Gerald Brooks, your constitution does not apply to me because I'm a sovereign citizen, a traveler on the land. I'm from the Moorish Empire or whatever, bitch snitch. Because they're so fucking absurd. If you want to be a sovereign citizen, just do yourself a favor first. Go to YouTube here and bitch get every sovereign citizen that's ever been recorded. Find me one that won. God dang, you're right. Don't go down this. It's not the path. Don't have time for stupidity. Some clever dick on the internet didn't find the great loophole in all of the world's law. Bitch snitch. God dang, you're right. God dang, you're right. Traveler on the land. Moorish Empire, traveler on the land, bitch snitch, Browns, God dang, you're right, traveler on the land, bitch snitch, late evening U.S. people, Browns.
What do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What? What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God!
Who could it possibly be? Was it, oh, I don't know. Satan?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, everybody, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it, whether you're doing it in the grave. Okay, that's crossing the line. That's crossing the line. Necrophilia. No, we're not having any of that here, even though it's questionable in this trial. I'm just glad whatever you're doing it here with me, Legal Vices, on this little old channel we like to call Legal Vices. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody for part 11 of the Donald Hartung murder trial, the witchcraft, ritualistic, allegedly, murder, allegedly, trial out of Florida, 2015, a 2015 murder and a 2020 trial. That you don't have to have seen the first 10 parts. Trust me, they just think this guy did it. It's actually been a pretty flimsy case so far. Really, the only direct evidence they have to tie him to this murder is a prison snitch. Bitch snitch. Grounds. They just have the prison snitch. That's literally the only direct evidence they have to tie him to these murders. Well, so I honestly don't think so far the state has proven their case, and this trial is almost over. So, you know, if you want to go check it out, go right ahead. The previous 10 parts are there. They're all amusing in their own right. Except for the last one was actually, last week's was the most boring, yet also the most interesting. Figure that one out. Yeah, so there we go. We're gonna check this out today. We're gonna start here with part 11, and this first bit here, the first witness is 1 hour and 16 minutes long. Well, there's a little bit of lawyer talk at the beginning, and then this segment is 1 hour and 16 minutes long. And at the end of this hour and 16 minutes, which is why I got to shut up really quick here, and we got to get into this, because the next witness after this hour and 16-minute witness is the Wiccan high priest that we've been waiting for. We need to try to get to the Wiccan high priest today. We've been waiting for, this is our 11th episode. We've been waiting for this to happen. So we need to jump into it. We've got Coxwell, Infinger got recalled. Coxwell, I think, is getting recalled. Then they can tell us more how Coxwell and Infinger had to go in through the rear. We can go through all of that, but nothing will ever compete with last week's, when we found out that the blood was either human blood or ferret blood. Ferrets apparently cannot be ruled out as possible murderers or murder victims. So there's that little mystery that we all learned way too much about last year. Could have been people, could have been ferrets. We don't know. The ferrets, unfortunately, Heather Sparrow, do not testify, unfortunately. Before we get into this, our house cleaning stuff, we've got tomorrow. It's tomorrow morning U.S. time, or is it? No, I guess it's 1:30 p.m. Sometime in the middle of the freaking afternoon, Florida time, will be the Karen Reed motion trial. All as I know is it's 2:30 in the morning for me. So I'm gonna try to get some sleep. I'm gonna play chicken with my alarm clock, and I plan on being awake to stream the Karen Reed motion to dismiss hearing tomorrow. So don't miss that. Be here for all of that. That will be the Friday stream, and then next Monday we'll hopefully have another Maritime Monday. We might have to do a Sarah Boone update. I don't know, because there's also a Sarah Boone hearing on Friday. So we've got stuff coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's developments in the What the Hales case. There's developments in the Clayton Eckerd case. There's lots of developments in lots of cases. So we're going to be covering those. All right. If you are following here on the replay crew, stand by for something new and interesting. We are on day 2. We've had two, well, I guess this is day 3. We've had 2 consecutive days of reaching the goal of unlocking the emotional support potato pig dog cam. Will we have a day 3, Strawberry? What do you think? Will we unlock day 3 of the emotional support potato pig dog cam? Let's find out as the show goes on. This is not a regular trial, so super chats will be read as they come up. I'll pay a little bit more attention to the chat than I normally do during a regular trial stream. So we will be having our usual fun and shenanigans during this. It's a little bit of a time for us to kick back and relax. These Throwback Thursday trials, and we'll put the like and subscribe poll up once this thing gets going. Once I push play and it gets going, the first thing I got to go do is bring my fan into the studio. It is just like melty hot in here. All right, we got 105 people here, 50 likes. Get down there and smash that like button, people. 50 of you haven't done your job. Do that right now. And we have dun dun dun, Adam Wathen is kicking us off with 5 Legal Vices memberships. If you are one of the lucky 5 that got one of those Legal Vices memberships, then make sure you give Adam Wathen a super special thanks. That would be Kat Zab, the Sock Snatcher, Mad Mom, Megan McCarthy, and Gwendolyn SS. Make sure you give Adam a special thanks for your gifted memberships. And I'm going to try to have a membership stream this Sunday, so just in time. Did I get a tsunami warning earlier? No, I did not get a tsunami warning earlier. It's just hot and raining. Those are the only announcements we get here. All right, everybody. I think that's just about it. Darren Larson says terrible editing on the intro. I don't know which part of the intro you're talking about. If you're talking about the grounds video, that is not terrible editing. If you're talking about the mens rea clip, there's no editing there. If you're talking about the Donald Hartung intro, no, that is not terrible editing. And if you're talking about the church lady, that is not terrible editing. And if you're talking about them all strung together, that's no editing. That's just me pushing buttons. So the intro is very, very good. Darren Larson has already apologized. It was pre-coffee. No, that's not an entire edited intro. That is 4 different sections being played together. Now, Alan Walsh, be nice. We're just be nice. We're having fun here. We're having all kinds of fun. And I said, I'll put the like and subscribe poll up here in just a minute. But for those of you following on replay, due to a suggestion that we had in chat, we are introducing a new feature, the separation between the bullshit up front and the main meat of the show. We're going to get to my meat here in just a second, but we need a buffer zone between the fellowship and philosophizing and my meat. Before we get to the meat of the program, we're now going to have like a little swipe screen, a little brief intermission, so that the people that are like just like scrolling through and doing things, like for example, we can do this, because like people on the replay crew, they go, oh, I don't want to hear all this pointless waste of time. Let me scroll through here. This is our next witness, by the way. So get ready for that. They scroll through and they go, oh, I don't know when he stops talking. So now we're creating a buffer. We're creating a little bit of an introduction there. So the people that are scrolling through that way to skip the BS at the beginning will have a screen that will come up and be about 20 seconds long, and they'll go, aha, this is where the meat begins. For example, first, let's clear off this super chat here. The most important super chat, in that it is the first super chat. We are now only $70 away from the emotional support pig dog cam already. Ike with the 5 Aussie bucks here for my witchcraft fix. As I have the next 3 days off, I'm going to watch this one drunk for the first time. Hey, what a coincidence. I'm just getting into mine. This is what is known in the bartending industry as a fuck ton of vodka tonic. That will be my drink of the evening. And I'll set up my pipe here in just a bit. All right, here is what we are going to be doing now. From here on out, after we get done with the introduction and before we get into the main body of what we will be discussing each and every day.
This is a brief intermission.
You're very much appreciated for saying that I'm appreciated. I appreciate that.
This is a brief intermission.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to have a search and/or seizure. More likely the seizure. I appreciate you.
This is a brief intermission.
I appreciate you. All right, that's the first draft of our segue from the intro to the main part of the discussion. All right, as I said, this is the main part of the discussion. So without further discussion, I'm going to start this running, and then I'm going to go and bring the fan in here because it is ass hot. All right. And you can already hear Strawberry chewing on her toy. Ho! All right, tease T, shame on you for that. I will address your super chat here when I return. Stand by for super chats and stuff. Let's go with the trial. I shall return momentarily. As soon as
Your name, please.
Dr. Andy Minyard.
And Dr. Minyard, obviously you're a doctor, but what is your occupation?
I'm the Associate Medical Examiner in District 20, which is in Naples.
In July, August of 2015, where did you work?
I was the Chief Medical Examiner in District 1 here in Pensacola, and includes Escambia, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and Walton counties.
And how long did you hold that position before you moved down south?
14 years.
How long have you been a medical doctor?
Since graduating from medical school in 1992.
And how long have you been a medical examiner, either associate or chief?
I began as a deputy coroner, no, actually as an associate medical examiner the year I finished my fellowship training. So that would be since 1999.
And what is your specialty?
Forensic pathology is my specialty, and that was what my last year of training was in, specifically forensic pathology.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors what forensic pathology is?
Forensic pathology is the field of medicine in which the doctor performs postmortem examinations to determine the
Hi.
cause and manner of death. And the deaths are due to homicides, suicides, accidents, or any other type of unnatural or violent cause of death.
Our defendant is unnatural, though. So does that
Can
really?
you tell the jurors
really
your
mean anything?
educational background?
Yes, I graduated from University of Louisville with an undergraduate degree, then also went to medical school.
Okay, so she graduated from the University of Louisville. Now, look, she may not be from there, but certainly if you went to the University of Louisville, you would know that you actually did, in fact, go to the University of Louisville. I have friends from Louisville. There's like 2 vowels in Louisville. I mean, there's like 2 consonants. There's an L and a V, and then just a bunch of vowels. Louisville. She went to the University of Louisville. And speaking of someone who didn't go to any of the universities, T's T is kicking. Oh, Adara the Wholesome. 20 seconds till meat is an awful adult video title. Here's the pizza and here's the pepperoni. Anung Hero with the $2. We appreciate Jeff's meat. Can we stop that, please? And T's T bringing the super heat. Woo! With that, we have triggered several things. First, we have already achieved our first goal of the evening, which triggers the second goal. And we are already well on our way to the second goal. So the first goal is that little part of the show that we like to call Release the Hose. And that triggers Strawberry today. I need the emotional support potato pig dog cam, please, at your service, TST. Thank you so much for that ridiculous generosity. And with that, we also, because it was a straight up hundy, that gives us the final shot of the Woodford Reserve Korea edition. It's a little more than, but cheers. Thank you very much. Woohoo! Let's celebrate, people. That was a little big. That's what she said.
Phrasing.
All right. Those are, oh, Strawberry looks so nice next to that royal blue curtain background, doesn't she? What a cutie. All right. That's it. Thank you so much for all of that, guys. As I said, we're well on our way to the second of the achievements. All right. I think that's everything. We think we can get back into this. I missed this. She is the medical examiner. Is that what she was? Oh, Lordy. Now I've done it. I've touched things. That wasn't supposed to happen. But it did because I touched things. Yes, she is medical examiner Andrea Minyard. I apologize. We'll skip a little bit of this here. Have no idea how far in we got. I'll say about that far.
And the deaths are due to homicides, suicides, accidents, or any other type of unnatural or violent cause of death.
Can you tell the jurors your educational background?
Yes, I graduated from
I have lots of good
University of
whiskeys to choose
Louisville
from.
with an undergraduate degree.
Hey, there
and
we
also
are.
went to medical school.
Again, not
After
Louisville,
medical
it's
school, I
Louisville.
did a 5-year residency in the umbrella
The Umbrella
heading
Academy.
of pathology. The umbrella heading includes all the different subheadings of pathology. My field of study at that time was anatomic and clinical pathology. After that 5 years was over, I did a 1-year forensic pathology fellowship and then began work as an associate medical examiner. I've also worked in Ohio as a deputy coroner. I'm licensed to practice medicine in the state of Florida.
Are you board certified?
And I'm board certified. That's it. You reminded me. By the American Board of Pathology in anatomic pathology.
I forgot my
pathology,
my
and
memorized
forensic
statement.
pathology.
See, now I'm wondering, is this some sort of medallion? What, this her necklace? Does it also serve as some sort of medallion for witchcraft purposes? Is she in on it? Is she part of the coven? I don't know if I did I ever show you guys my my super awesome Cthulhu pipe. I know I've showed my green one a few times, but this was made by a very, very famous Turkish pipe manufacturer. This is the box it came in. It's SV Pipes Design is the guy's name. He's probably the premier pipe carver on planet Earth. But this is my Cthulhu themed pipe here. You know, you've got the all the stuff around the outside, and this is the pipe. Let's see how we got to get this here. Ooh, that's the Cthulhu pipe here. This was actually my first custom pipe I ever got. Anyway, it's massive. So, all right. Now I can't tell if she is like not attractive or if she is attractive. She's like both at the same time. She reminds me of Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie.
Now, as part of your duties as a medical examiner, do you perform autopsies?
Yes.
And I know you don't probably keep tick marks, but in your career, approximately how many autopsies have you performed?
When I worked in District 1, we had a very heavy caseload. I would perform.
District 9 is where they keep all the illegal aliens.
I would perform up to 400 cases per year. And 20, add that to 20 years. So it's thousands.
Okay. And have you testified previously as an expert?
I have.
Approximately how many times?
Probably hundreds.
And does that include depositions and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, my boobs
Can
are
you
down
describe for the
here.
jurors just the basic autopsy procedure?
When a death is called into my office, my investigator would determine whether or not it falls under our jurisdictional guidelines. Those guidelines are actually written out in Florida statutes. If it does fall under our jurisdiction, we take control of the case. We either make a scene visit and then transport the body, or we just bring the
Wow, the
body
gal from
straight
Under
in,
Siege.
depending on
That
what
would
kind
be
of case
Erica
it is.
Eleniak.
When the body's brought in,
Don't ask
the
me how
next
I
business
remember her
day is
name
when the
after, like,
autopsy would be
35
completed,
years.
and that's where we unbag the remains, take pictures, a document on autopsy notes
Erica Eleniak.
of medical therapy, of clothing, injuries, any fluids, that kind of thing. Then all of that is peeled away, almost like a
Oh, she can
layered
peel my fluids
onion,
away anytime.
and we take more pictures and more documentation till we get down to just what we were born with, which is our bodies without clothing, without medical therapy, without dried fluids, as clean as we can make them. And then that's
Man.
easier for me to document the external
Saucy.
injuries.
Hey,
Does
Phrasing.
do you do a report after the autopsy?
I do.
And does the report reflect your opinion regarding the cause of death and the manner of death?
Yes.
Besides the autopsy, do you sometimes review any relevant medical records if appropriate?
Yes.
JKD Buck,
Did
many,
you
especially after her
perform
Playboy thing
autopsies
came out.
on Richard Smith, John Smith, and Von Seal Smith?
Yes.
And were their autopsies all done on the same day?
Yes.
What day was that?
That day was August 1st, 2015.
And when were they found deceased?
They were found July 31st, 2015.
Now, that day difference between when they were found and when you did the autopsy.
Strawberry
does
has
that
a chew
affect
toy.
anything?
No, the bodies are delivered straight into a cooled storage unit, like a refrigerator. So there should be minimal to any change in the bodies.
And sometimes you go out to the scenes of homicides.
Yes,
Did you go to the scene in this particular case?
I did.
When did you go?
I went to the scene after the autopsy was performed.
Sorry, I'm just.
And
All
what
right.
was your purpose of
I hate to interrupt. I don't really hate to interrupt. Actually, I enjoy interrupting. But you know how my brain works. I've just made another association when she's talking about putting the bodies in the morgue and in the freezer. It reminded me of one of the great songs of my youth. Absolutely, some of the best lyrics of any song ever. Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper wrote a song on his "Welcome to My Nightmare" album, which was probably the 6th or the 7th album I ever owned, but it was one of the first albums I ever played on my own because my brother owned it before me. Alice Cooper's "Welcome to My Nightmare" has a song called "Cold Ethel." And I quote, "One thing I miss is cold Ethel and her skeleton kiss. We met last night, making love by the refrigerator light. Ethel, Ethel, let me squeeze you in my arms. Ethel, Ethel, let me freeze you with my charms. One thing, no lie, Ethel's frigid as an Eskimo pie. She's cool in bed, and she ought to be, 'cause Ethel's dead. Ethel, Ethel, let me squeeze you in my arms. Ethel, Ethel, let me freeze you with my charms." And then one of my favorite lines from all of music. "Cold Ethel, I'm stuck on you. Come on, Ethel, freeze me, babe. It's cool. It's nice." This is how my brain works. Yes, that is Alice Cooper's "Cold Ethel." just the double entendre in the "Cold Ethel, I'm stuck on you." That's some of the greatest lyrics ever. Let's return to her job and try not to think of that song ever again.
Going out in this particular case.
My
Thank you,
purpose
Carla.
was to look at now that I knew the injuries because I'd already performed the autopsies, I wanted to look at the scene for evidence of where and how they were inflicted. For example, before I did the autopsy, I had no way of knowing that one of the victims had been shot. But once I did the autopsy, I was able to see that one was shot, and then we were able to go out and estimate where that projectile would have been found.
So let's start with John Smith. What was his height?
He was He was 76 inches in height. That's a measured length, and it translates to 6 feet 4 inches.
And what about his weight?
He's a tall
He
one.
weighed 293 pounds,
What?
And his
Wow,
age?
he's a big boy.
47 years.
And when you first saw John Smith, do you do an external examination?
I did.
And did you observe any obvious injuries to John Smith?
Yes, I did.
What did you see?
He had several injuries of his head and obvious injury of the left side of his neck and a smaller injury of his foot.
Were photos taken during the course of John Smith's autopsy?
Yes.
Would they help illustrate or assist your testimony for the jury today?
Yes.
Would they also help explain the type of injuries that you saw as well as the number?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Just don't approach the defendant. He bites.
Ms. Wilson. Dr. Maynard, I'm going to show you what have been previously marked as State's Exhibits 385 through 392. You'll just take a look at those and see if you recognize them.
Yes,
Okay.
I
And
am
do you recognize those
Dracula.
exhibits?
I do.
Are they fair and accurate visuals of the injuries and the locations to John Smith?
Yes, they are.
Judge, at this time, I'd move States 385 through 392 into evidence.
Any objection? No objection. So admitted.
And permission to publish?
You may.
All right, Dr. Maynard, I'm showing you States Exhibit 385. If you could just describe for the jurors what they are looking at here.
This is the facial shot of Mr. John Smith, and you can tell that there's an injury here up on the top of the forehead and some displacement or some distortion of the shape of the top of his head.
This is States Exhibit 386.
Here is the top of Mr. Smith's head with the hair still intact. So this is his natural way of.
You know he's just sitting there going.
And in the next picture, you'll see that I will shave the hair in order to see the wounds better.
This is States 387.
So here we've got a really nice view of the
Coming
wounds
to
now.
get
We
you,
can really
Barbara.
see them well. I've shaved the scalp, and this is a wound, this is a wound, and this is a wound.
Now, have you actually placed gauze or something inside of the wound?
It's possible that I have because It's not very clear, but the skull is usually not this white. It's usually pale yellow. So that might be gauze, just to show you the line edges of the wound itself.
This is states 388.
The hammer head
Yeah.
is seemingly a good match for this center wound. You can see based on the diameter of the hammerhead and the diameter of the wound that they do match up.
Hammerhead shark?
This is states 389.
This picture was taken because of the fact that these sort of match up with the back of the hammer, the cloth part.
This is 390.
And here's another way that could sort of match up to this wound here, the more centrally located wound.
This is 391.
This is an incised wound made with sharp force or a sharp-edged weapon. You can see the edges are very clean. They're pale, kind of yellow, just like the rest of the skin. So it's not a braided edges, which would make you think more along the lines, well, maybe he was struck with a pipe or a baseball bat. So here you have the nice, clean cut edges.
And is that consistent with some sort of knife?
Yes, it is.
What about this little hole right here?
It's either the tip of the knife as it's inserted this way, poking through here and then being taken back out, or it's a poke as he's entering. So it's either accidentally poked all the way through kind of deal, or a couple of different stabs.
Oops, sorry. This is State's Exhibit 392. What does this show?
This is the inside of the skull. I've taken off the skull
He's
cap,
looking at those
and
horrible
this is where
pictures
the
with a
injury
little
was,
too much
where
interest.
These fragments came out. And you can see they're sort of circular shaped. And here's one that just sort of was all by itself. Again, consistent with the head of the hammer.
But he does appear to have a genuine look of horror and disgust on his face. I mean, that just might be resting corpse face, but he does sort of kind of look like he's affected by it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I want to talk about any interior injuries based on those wounds. First off, how many injuries did John appear to have to the top of his head?
John appeared to have three separate injuries.
And what type of internal injuries did that cause to John Smith?
That caused bleeding on the brain. It caused lacerations of the brain, which are basically cuts of the brain from being smashed.
Holy
with
God.
something. And it caused the skull fractures.
Now, the wound to John's neck,
Mariko.
what can you tell the jury about that?
The wound to the neck was
Mariko knows.
3 3/4 inches in length, with a sort of a zigzag reposition outline. A zigzag reposition means that the knife was repositioned. So it was stuck and then it came out.
It's like when you're cutting through the
Causing two
watermelon
different
and you
cuts,
realize it's like going
causing
into
sort of
an
a
angle,
zigzag
so
or
you pull it
Z-shaped
out,
line.
and then you like try to get it
The
lined up again.
depth of the wound was 6.5 inches. There was, I think you saw the smaller incised wound, about 1/4 inch.
Okay, the depth was 6.5 inches. That's like 15 centimeters for you non-imperial types. That someone meant it. Holy cow.
Away from the main wound. And it hit through the epiglottis. It hit through the membrane that surrounds the epiglottis, called the thyrohyoid membrane. It's part of the voice box. It crossed the midline and it transected the right common carotid artery. And it penetrated the lateral aspect of the 6th cervical vertebrae. So it didn't puncture all the way through, but it just sort of penetrated.
And is that carotid artery, is that a major artery?
It is.
And you said that was severed?
Correct. That's the artery that you can feel your neck and you can feel the pulse.
What is your opinion as to the cause of death of John Smith?
The cause
This
of
is
death
the kind of thing that just
is combined
tickles my
effects
balls.
of stab wound of neck and blunt impact of head.
And why do you say combined?
I say combined because it's difficult for me to know exactly which part of the wounds that he suffered killed him. It may have actually been a little bit of both, and it's impossible to tease one out from the other.
Would either one of those have caused his death, either injuries to the head or the injury to the throat?
Yes.
And what is your opinion as to the manner of death?
The manner of death is homicide.
Now, did you look at the stomach contents of John Smith during the course of his autopsy?
I did.
And what did John have, if anything?
He had a stomach that was he had 1 liter of material in his stomach, form of food and
Don't just say
fluid.
material. Be
And
specific.
it was corn and green beans. Now there was other stuff in there. It mixed that I couldn't tell exactly what it all was, but I at least saw some elements of corn and green beans.
I
Now,
didn't
is
need to
there
know
any
that.
way for
I
you
really
to
didn't.
tell how long before his death John Smith ate corn and green beans?
No, it's a very difficult to determine when someone eats a meal. It's easy for the people that are on
She is not unattractive.
Law and Order. They can do it quite well. But in reality, what we're faced with when I do an autopsy and I look at the stomach contents, it's usually a stomach full of mush, and there's no way to determine what it is. Every once in a while, like in this case, I can picture a small piece
In
of
the
food
case of
that looks
corn, you
familiar,
can
and I'll
always
be sure
tell.
to mention that in the body of the report.
Corn is
but
always
for
corn.
the most part, it's
corn never stops
unidentifiable.
being corn,
So when you eat a large meal,
especially
you're going
corn.
to digest that slower. That
Except for the
meal will
corn.
disappear slower than if you eat a small meal. That meal will disappear faster. And that's just the way of logic. You put more food in your stomach, it's going to take longer for it to work its way through. You put less food in your stomach, it'll work its way through quicker. That being said, if I find food in someone's stomach, does it mean that they ate an extra large meal 5 hours ago? Or did they eat a small meal 5 minutes ago? There's no way to tell for me. So that's why gastric time and trying to figure out when the person's last meal was is practically impossible.
Does food digestion vary from person to person?
It does. It varies from person to person.
Does it
varies
digest
based
from
on your
food product
age,
to food product?
based on your weight, based on your health status, based on any medications that you might be taking.
And can you give us maybe the inner and outer limits of how digestion can vary?
It can be very quick. Like I said, under an hour if you eat a very small meal. I'm sure you all have fed babies and they don't drink a lot and they fall asleep and then they wake up an hour later
Weird,
and their
I drink
stomach
a lot,
is
then
empty
I
all
fall
over again
asleep.
and you got to go through all that all over again.
Sorry.
Versus Thanksgiving meal where you feel full until the next day.
Could an inner and outer limit be from 2 to 8 hours?
I've seen reports in the literature that say that 8 hours is the upper limit, but that's not to say that it couldn't be 5 minutes longer. But 8 hours is the accepted upper limit of gastric emptying time.
Do you submit toxicology samples for testing as well?
I do.
And did John Smith have anything in his system?
He did.
What did he have?
He had
Cocaine.
In his bile, which is the fluid that's in the
Oh,
gallbladder
God.
and the liver,
Thank you.
he
for
had
that.
some diphenhydramine.
What is that?
That's the generic word for Benadryl.
Motion sickness. That's Dramamine.
Excuse me. Now, is there anything, excuse me, that you can tell the jury about when the Benadryl was consumed in relation to John's death?
I cannot. I can only say that it was not found, well, I'm not sure it was tested for in the blood, frankly, but based on the fact that the diphenhydramine is positive in the bile, I cannot tell you when he would have taken the Benadryl or how much he would have taken.
So all you can say is that it was in his
The whole box.
bile.
In his bile. That's all I can say.
What are defensive wounds?
Defensive wounds are wounds that are on the hands. It's all location, location, location for defensive wounds. That's the only thing that distinguishes them from wounds somewhere else. And that's because we use our hands to deflect an attack.
Could defensive wounds also be on the outside of maybe the forearms?
They could be, yes. And they can even be on the legs and the feet.
Okay, so not limited to just hands.
Correct.
Okay. Did John Smith appear to have any defensive wounds?
He did not. He had a wound on his foot, but it was not anything that I felt was associated with this
Maybe he did like
series of
Haikiba
injuries. He,
tried
in
to
fact,
kick the knife away.
wound on the foot had a scabbed appearance to it, so it had been there for a little bit. It had already started to scab.
Now, the injuries to John's head and to his neck, would those take much
Bernice.
force to inflict?
The injuries to the head would be, yes, that would take a lot of force. You have to hit that hammer hard enough to crack the skull. And the skull's not thin, it's pretty thick.
Okay.
The injuries to the neck, most of those are just soft tissue injuries. Vessels are very soft, muscles are soft, skin is soft. So if you have a sharp enough knife, that probably wouldn't take a whole lot of force, but enough force.
Now I'm gonna call her medical bluff on this one. To sink a knife 6 inches into someone's upper body, that would take a little bit of strength. 6 inches of knife blade is a lot of knife blade.
You can imagine cutting, and I don't mean to be a crass, but I compare everything to food. Cutting a piece of steak, it's not with a sharp knife versus a dull knife. It's a lot easier to do when you have a sharp knife. But it still takes some force. But it's not impossible.
Ma'am,
But it's not an impossible amount of force.
let's move to Von Seal Smith. What was her weight?
She was 234 pounds,
And her
She's a
height?
big one.
71 and a half inches, which translates to just under 6 feet.
She's a big one. She's a big girl.
And her age?
And she was 78 years old.
It's a big 78-year-old.
And did you do an external examination of Von Seal Smith when you first received her body?
Yes,
And did you observe any obvious injuries?
I did.
What did you see?
She had many injuries around her scalp, her head. She had a stab wound of the left side of her neck, and she had some injuries on her extremities.
Okay. And were photos taken during the course of Von Seal Smith's autopsy?
Yes.
Dr. Maynard, I'm showing you States Exhibit 393. If you'll just describe for the jurors what this photo shows.
Yes, this is a picture taken at the scene in the home. You can see the carpeting.
Are there ferret droppings?
And they're showing you her
Ask
neck,
Zeke if
the
he's a
left side
ferret
of her neck.
farmer.
This
Hey,
finger is
Zeke,
holding
back
up
there.
the base of her
Do
jaw.
you raise
And
ferrets?
you can see here the incised wound that she has that's very similar to John's.
This is States Exhibit 394. What does this show?
Now, this is a picture of Von Seal. This is after I have removed the hair. She had hair, but it was It was barely holding on. And I think I taught you earlier that the best way for me to see injuries is to get rid of the hair. So that's the first thing I tried to do, is get rid of the hair.
Oh, he's casting a
Hers came off
spell.
very easily.
He's chanting something. American Dreamer says, apologies, I don't know anything, just got here. Hey, you don't need to, A, you don't need to apologize for anything. B, you don't need to know anything, because they really haven't proven anything. It was a pretty gruesome murder scene. Like saying there was like there was some stabbing and some bashing with hammers in Florida. The family disappeared on a Tuesday. They were discovered on Friday, and it was the end of July. I believe the murders were on July 28th or 29th, 2015. And the bodies sat for 4 days, locked up tight in a Florida house with no air conditioning, under piles of blankets and pillows, and weirdly some hangers. Yeah, so it was pretty ripe and nasty in there. They think he did it. They really haven't tied him to the case. The only way they've tied him to the case was through a really, really shady prison snitch. So that's all you really need to know.
Because she was in a state of decomposition.
And ferrets might have done it. It's last week we learned that the blood on the hammer and the knife could have been human blood or ferret blood.
The bloating, the greenish discoloration, the overly smooth texture, and the mottled discoloration of her skin.
Now, why does she look so different at autopsy compared to John?
Because one's a man and one's a
Theoretically,
woman.
because she's under more blankets, she's kept a bit warmer.
Oh.
People in the same household that die at the exact same time can decompose at different rates if they're exposed to two different temperatures.
And on the wound to the top of her head, is that gauze that you also may have put in there?
Yeah, probably.
This is State's Exhibit 395. What does this show?
Here you can see the aggregate of wounds on the top of Von Seal's head.
This is State's Exhibit 396.
And here is a little bit towards the back of the head.
Saddle up, Vicky Sue. Member for 1 month says, thank you for the summary. Happened in 2020, just now having his day in court. No, it happened in 2015, and the trial was in 2020. This is our throwback Thursday. This is just our retro trial Thursday. We do it every Thursday. Have a retro trial. So this is it. Meanwhile, he's chomping on some food while looking at pictures of his mother's brains. Great. What a guy. I had her liver with fava beans and a nice Chianti.
And you can see that clean, almost rounded edges. And if we were to turn it, you would see the beveling pattern.
And what is this area right here?
This area could be a bruise. It looks like it's a bruise with a pale center.
And is that consistent with a hammer strike?
Yes, what happens when the hammer hits, the blood rushes out towards the edges because you're basically flattening this area with the hammer. So you're flattening all the tissues. So they leak their blood into the surrounding tissues, which is why this is such a perfect circle.
Agra's looking
within a red
queasy
contusion.
Okay. This is State's 398.
And then here you can see the beveling that I was talking about earlier on the fractured pieces that came out from that larger hole.
And what does the beveling tell you?
The beveling, which is this sort of lopsided edge here, indicates that the direction of force was inward towards the center of her skull.
I can't remember. Just
outward.
gifted a Legal Vices membership to Morrick Brown. Congratulations, Morrick Brown. Make sure you give I Can't Remember a special thanks.
Just looking at it, could be a laceration, or it could be
H-Man.
I think I refer to it as a laceration, which is a cut with abraded edges. Now, remember, I taught you about the incised wounds made with a knife or a sharp weapon.
Taught us? Okay, Professor.
If it's an incised wound, it would be straight with no redness around the edges.
This is State's Exhibit 400. What does this show?
This shows the dried up pinky You
What?
can see that
Oh, that's
there's
right.
trauma here. It looks like the tip of her pinky has been traumatically amputated.
That's right. They chopped off the. Now that was the allegation last week that he allegedly lopped off her finger so she would give him the combination to the safe, where reportedly $300,000 to $500,000 in cash was being kept. Prison snitch told us that, and all Hartung had to say about it was.
Now, how many blows or strikes
coming to get you,
did
Barbara.
Von Seal have to her head?
Approximately 8.
And when you were talking about her pinky, how do you describe it in your autopsy report? What is the medical language that you describe it?
I say the tip of the left fifth finger is traumatically amputated.
And can you say what caused that wound? Could it have been a hammer? Could it have been a knife? What is your opinion?
In my opinion, it could have been a hammer. It could have been something that may not be that sharp. In other words, not like a razor sharp knife. That would
Could it
leave
have been a
nice
Warhammer
clean
4K
edge, but
chainsaw
maybe
sword?
a dull knife or a pair of scissors,
Wielded by a ferret.
or even a flathead screwdriver.
And the piece of the pinky that's missing, what is going to happen to it over a period of several days?
It will, if it's left at room temperature without fluid, it dries up and shrinks. Just like if you drop a little piece of chicken on your floor, you find it a month later and you can barely recognize it.
Now, I want to talk about the interior injuries to Von Seal Smith. What type of injuries did she receive internally from the injuries to her head?
She had the fractures that you've already seen in the skull, and she had subdural hemorrhage, which is bleeding on the brain. And she had the same thing as John, with the brain surface being lacerated.
Yikes. Hashtag yikes.
And what can you tell the jurors about the injury to her neck?
The injury to the left side of the neck extended from the anterior midline to 3.5 inches to the left. So it was 3.5 inches in length. It had a depth of up to 4.5 inches.
Did someone
And
puncture
it
her
went
neck
through
meat?
the left common carotid artery. And again, penetrated but did not perforate the cervical vertebra in the area.
Now, what is your opinion as to Von Seal Smith's cause of death?
Von Seal cause of death is blunt impact of head.
Okay, and why is that different from John? Why is it not combined like John's was?
I thought at the time that the traumatic amputation of the pinky tip was a blunt force trauma. In other words, that maybe that was a defensive type wound where she put her hand up and was fending off a hammer blow. In theory, then she's alive as she's suffering the hammer blow. Obviously, she's alive. So once that occurs, then I can say for sure that she's dead after that injury. So
once she's alive, I can say she's dead. What does that mean? But breaking news: we have found a photograph of the alleged murderer. If you've seen this witchy ferret wielding a hammer, please notify the Orange County Police.
this could be post-mortem. The cut on her neck could be after her death, or it could be before her death. But if she's still alive and able to defend herself against a hammer, then it's the hammer actually that kills her.
Now, if you had information at the time of your report that the pinky wound was intentionally inflicted, would that have changed your opinion?
You know, they were just sitting around their Tuesday dinner, which of course Donald Hartung always visited and cooked them dinner on Tuesday nights, the night they disappeared. And they were eating their corn and green beans with like the pinky out. And he's like, bitch, you extend that pinky one more time to eat corn and green beans and I'll cut that fucker off. And it went downhill from there.
Opinion as to her cause of death.
Yes, I'm assuming you mean intentionally inflicted at a different time than the head attack or the knife attack.
Right.
Yes. Yes, I would have, if I had known that the pinky was something not even related to the beating of the head or the stabbing in the neck, then I would have worded it like John's cause of death and give him combined effects, because at that point I would not be able to tell.
Well, how do you
And
know?
what is your opinion as to Von Silsmith's manner of death?
Homicide.
Did you look at the stomach contents of Von Seal during her autopsy?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what did Von Seal have in her stomach, if anything?
She had 250 mLs. So she had about a quarter of what John had as far as volume.
It's the Dramamine family.
I described hers
I'm sorry,
as
the Benadryl
pasty,
family.
thick fluid, which is basically what everyone's looks like. But I was able to identify some corn kernels.
Oh, stop with the fucking corn kernels.
And again, digestion varies from person to person, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And did you submit any toxicology samples for testing on Von Silsmith?
Yes.
And did she have anything in her system?
Yes, she did.
What did she have?
She also had Benadryl.
That's what it sounded
It was
like.
located in her liver. I was unable to obtain bile because of the level of decomposition, or maybe she just didn't have a gallbladder. I forget. So the only
You're
thing
the
I was
medical
able to
examiner and you
obtain
don't know
as far
whether
as
she had a
specimens on
gallbladder or
Von Seal
not?
was her stomach contents, her liver, and a piece of her brain. And the Benadryl came back positive in the liver.
They were allergic to ferrets.
Now,
Nice
you
one,
mentioned
Jem.
earlier that she had a number of items on top of her. So if she had 19 bags of stuff on top of her as compared to 4 on John and 2 on Richard, would that explain why she's more decomposed?
Yes.
So let's talk about Richard Smith, please. What was Richard Smith's weight?
Richard weighed 311 pounds.
Okay, and his height?
He was 77 inches in length, which translates to 6'5".
They're just
his
a
age.
goddamn big
He
family.
was 49 years old.
And did you do an external examination of Richard Smith when you
Jeez,
first
they're just all
received his
big
body?
people.
Yes, I did.
And did you observe any obvious injuries to Richard Smith?
Yes.
What did you see?
He also
I
had an
don't know,
incised
Joe.
wound of the neck on the left side. And I think I'd already mentioned earlier the gunshot wound of his head.
And were photos taken of Richard Smith during the course of his autopsy?
Yes.
Now, again, for those of you that are just watching this for the first time, part of the motivation, according to Prison Snitch, was that Richard, the one he was they're just talking about now, reportedly did some really PDF file things to the defendant's son. And the mother wrote him out of the will. So Prison Snitch said he had the motivation to kill his mother because of the will, and the motivation to kill his one brother because of the things that his brother did to his son. And he couldn't leave the third son alive, his other brother alive. So he had to kill his other brother. So that's what they're saying. Because Richard did the bad thing to his child, which was never proven. And they had his son on the stand, and his son didn't mention anything about it. But they thinks he just shot him in the head, executed him. Oh, Leslie Ann Moon, we'll leave the poll up until the very end.
No objection, Your Honor.
Judge, at this time, I move states 401 through 410 into evidence without objection.
So admitted.
Oh, and while they're doing that, now is a good point to do our midstream grift. Now that has been brought to our attention by Leslie Ann Moon, let's take a midstream look at our poll. Our like and subscribe poll. We've got 212 people watching this concurrently and 133 likes. Everybody, make sure you get down there and hit that like button. We need about 70 more likes. It looks like we can do 75 more likes. Get down there and smash those likes. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We're entertaining. And this is the best chat. The Vice Squad chat is the best chat you will ever see anywhere on the entire interwebs. So subscribe to the channel. And if you have already subscribed, please just double check to make sure you are still subscribed. And take our like and subscribe poll. We're trying to find out who killed these victims. Who killed John and Richard and Mama? Who killed them? Well, 2% of you think an unknown stranger did it. So far, 10% of you think the weird neighbor dude that watches everybody and has a photographic memory. 17% of you think the defendant did it. That's very, very low. And a full 70% say ferrets, obviously. So there we go. That's the midstream grift. Just checking here. See, that's 110. What's plus 31, 40? Okay, we are 60 away from unlocking goal achievement number 2, but we don't really care about that.
And may I publish?
If it happens, it happens. Still think we need to ask Zeke back there if he has ferrets.
Dr. Bernard, I'm showing you States Exhibit 401. If you could describe for the jurors what this photo
It's
shows.
snowman lube. What the hell is snowman
you can see
lube?
the mottled discoloration of his skin, which is because of the fact, and here's some slipping off, because of the fact that he's decomposing.
Oh.
And here's a dark red abrasion here on the forehead, on the bridge of the nose.
Oh, no.
Excuse me. Is it possible that a hammer could cause those injuries?
It is, I can't rule out a hammer causing it, but this is not.
Can you rule
exactly
out a Lexus
consistent with the pattern
SUV?
of a hammer.
Inconsistent with the pattern of a hammer.
Maybe this one, and I'd have to look
Maybe?
at the other pictures, the ones that show it.
Okay.
She's going to kind of get murdered, I think, on cross-examination.
So possible, you just can't say for certain.
Wait,
Right.
it's
And
Nicola
it depends
Maxwell's
on what
birthday?
Surface of the hammer.
We
you're
need to
at.
stop and wish Nicola Maxwell a happy birthday. Oh, my sweet baby Nicole Maxwell, it's your birthday. Congratulations and happy birthday to you all the way there in Scotland. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day because, frankly, you deserve it. We get lots of yummy things for dinner, an awesome cake, and lots of fabulous prezzies.
Actually hitting it. The hammer has many different shapes if you go around its surface.
Mexican
This is
Vader,
States
too.
Exhibit
Hey,
402.
happy birthday, dude.
This is the buccal surface of the lower lip, and you can see
If you were a
the
chick, I'd
contusion
make
there,
a bigger deal out of it.
which is a bruise.
States 403.
Here you can see the incised wound of the left side of Richard's neck.
States 404.
Here's an entrance gunshot wound right here.
Oh,
in the
nice
helix
one,
of
Tony.
The right
The
ear.
funky Cole Medina. Great song.
States 405.
This is how it came out of the ear. It tunneled under the skin, which you can almost sort of make out faintly, and then exited here.
States 406.
This is just a better picture showing you how it hit the back of the ear as it came out and tunneled under the skin to exit. It did not enter the skull.
States 407.
This is an abrasion, which is a scratch or a scrape of the skin, and that appears to be on the left elbow.
States 408.
This is the back of the left hand, and you can see that there is an injury here. It looks like a sharp force injury in a typical location.
Grand
for a
Moff Tarkin
defensive
is the defendant,
States 409.
also known
Here's
as
a
Lurch.
different view of it, but you can see that this is very typical for defensive wounds when you're fighting off someone who has a knife.
And States 410.
And then this is the shirt that I believe Richard was wearing.
Don't do that.
The injury to
Don't do that, dude. That does not help your case. Let's see if we can listen. Watch what he does here when she says that's the shirt I think he was wearing.
Getting off someone who has a knife.
and states 410.
And then this is the shirt that I believe Richard was wearing.
He's like, no, that wasn't the shirt he was wearing when I murdered him. Don't do that, dude. When like, this is the shirt he was wearing, don't go, was not. Don't do that. It does not help your case.
The injury to Richard's neck. What can you tell the jurors about that?
It was 1.5. Let's see.
It was a knife
2
punch to the
3/4
neck
inches in length, and it reached a depth up to 2 inches.
Okay. And the path?
And it also had that zigzag outline appearance to show that it was
The mark of
repositioned.
Zorro.
And the path went through the common carotid artery on the left, and it went through the thyroid cartilage, which is part of the voice box. And then they hit the lateral cervical vertebrae and the
Stabbed
spinal
him in the
cord. So
cervix?
this one, and
What?
as opposed to the other two that where the bone blocked the knife, the bone didn't block the knife because he ran into the disc. The disc is much softer material, and knives can go through discs. So the knife went through this.
But young black
vertebral
economist,
disc and actually
would they
injured
try
the
to
spinal
stab
cord.
you given half the chance?
And what
That's
type
what we
of
need to
effect
know.
is that
Did
injury
they
to
ever
the
look at the
spinal cord
kitchen
going to have
knives
on
like,
Richard?
It was at the level of approximately
give me
C4.
cat food instead of ferret food one more time, bitch.
You
and
can
I'll cut
imagine
you.
if you
Any of
break
that?
your neck in a diving accident and you break it at C4, you're probably going to lose your legs, or at least movement of your legs and arms, if not all of your arms.
Now, did he have any injuries to his head from the abrasions and the contusions that the jurors just saw?
He had, like we saw in the pictures, he had those big scrapes on his forehead, and he also had a thin layer of bleeding on his brain.
The gunshot wound.
Full space marine armor.
This was not, I guess, a
wielding the
fatal or
chainsaw sword.
major type wound. Is that correct?
Well, anytime a bullet pierces your skin, I think it's major.
But they're strong and
But
fast.
in this case, he may
They move
not
like the
have
wind.
died immediately unless it got so close that maybe it caused his brain to swell just from the force of it. But I wouldn't know.
Okay. And would it,
Oh, he's
is that
getting
at
hungry.
least
The
strong
defendant's
enough?
getting
I don't know
hungry.
if that's the right legal or medical word, but is it going to stun him, startle him, maybe cause him to go down?
I would think getting shot in the
Cause him to
head
do
where the
what?
bullet pierces the skin and
phrasing.
tunnels underneath the skin is similar to getting struck in the head with a pole. So yes, I would think
Yes,
he
I'll go
could be
down.
in
I guess I'll
pain.
go down.
He
Stop
could be
stabbing
startled.
me.
He could even drop to the ground. He could even be unconscious. I just don't know.
Yes. Don't nod your head when she
Now,
gives her theory of
did
how
you
he was
examine
stabbed to
the
death.
gunshot wound on Richard for soot or gunpowder?
Yes, I did.
And what was your finding?
I saw neither.
Okay. And so what does that mean for your purposes as medical examiner?
As medical examiners, we place gunshots into 3 range of fire categories.
Close,
Those categories
medium,
are
and far away.
close or contact, which is where the weapon is held very close to the skin. There's an intermediate, which is somewhere between a couple inches and a foot. And then there's distant, which is everything over the foot. And the way that we do this is that we look at the skin around the defect on at the site of the injury. If we see black soot, we know that black soot comes out of the end of the weapon, but it dissipates very quickly. So if black soot is on the skin, that means the weapon was held up very close because that black soot was able to come out and stain the skin.
Why you got to say black soot?
If we
Is there
see
white
gunpowder
soot?
stippling, we know that the
Why you
weapon
gotta
was
say it like
probably a
that?
little further away because gunpowder stippling can travel further than the soot. So an absence of soot and a presence of gunpowder particles on the skin indicates that the weapon was not touching the skin, but it wasn't 3 feet away. In other words, it was that intermediate range. Then there's everything else. No soot, no stippling, just a hole. Basically means a distant wound. It could be 1 mile. It could be 11 miles away.
Okay, what?
And what about in
Who
terms
the,
of
who the
feet?
fuck in the history of
Well-
planet Earth has been shot from 11 fucking miles away? Come on, doctor. Who has been shot from 11 miles away that you could definitively say that about? I challenge you to identify one person in the history of planet Earth that is shot from 11 miles away. Good Lord. Whoa, that was weird. What happened to my lighting? Stop. My lighting is possessed. All right. That was weird. All right. 11 miles away. Weirdly, we just looked at this on my stream the other day. I think there's a Ukrainian sniper just very recently set the world's record for the longest confirmed kill. And it was like 3.4 miles or something like that. The bullet had a flight time of 11 seconds. I mean, 9 seconds. It had a flight time of 9 seconds. That was pretty damn impressive. Weirdly, we just read about that the other day.
In feet. So the contact wound is either held against the skin or very
11
close to the
miles.
skin. The intermediate wound range, let me back up though, and keep in mind these ranges will be different for every type of weapon that is used and every type of ammunition that's used in that weapon. But the intermediate range, I can give you just a rule of thumb, is anywhere from a couple inches to a foot, or a foot and some inches, foot and a half maybe. And then beyond that would be distant.
Now, the
11.
bullet trajectory, was there any angling or what was the path that it went that you saw?
The direction went from the decedent's front to back and from his right side to his left.
Always go front to back, front to back.
And what about
people.
any
Always
angling?
go front to back.
Upward or downward? There was no angling upward. It went straight across
Jules.
with the horizon.
And what is the cause of death, in your opinion, for Richard Smith?
The cause of death for Richard Smith is incised wound of neck.
And why not the gunshot wound?
Again, the gunshot wound, while it may have hurt him and caused symptoms, I can't say that that's what caused his death, because there's nothing fatal that I can say occurred because of it. In other words, he didn't lose 3 liters of blood from that wound. He didn't, his brains weren't mushing out. So I can't say that there was really anything that I can dig my feet into and call it that is the cause of death.
And what is your opinion as to Richard's manner of death?
Homicide.
Did you look at the stomach contents of Richard during the course of his autopsy?
Yes.
And what did Richard have, if anything?
Thank you, thank you,
Richard
thank you, Jules.
had 100 mLs.
Oops, wrong one.
So he had just under half of what Von Seal
That's
had
what I was going for.
of thick, pasty tan fluid. And I did see evidence of crinkle fries.
Did you submit tox?
I don't know why that struck me as funny, but it did. She sounded so pleased that she identified crinkle fries in the stomach. There are no hounds. Wait, Yoda is present. I don't know when Yoda snuck back in. So there we go. We're rehounded. Yoda's here. Strawberry is under the table licking my foot. But I mean, we had the ferret murderers last week, and now it's like we've got corn and green beans. There's corn, and I identified crinkle fries. Just the way she said that was was just really wild. I don't know why that struck me as funny, but it did. She was just so pleased she identified crinkle fries in the stomach, along with the thick, pasty tan fluid. So Mama was eating some crinkle fries.
And I did see evidence of crinkle fries.
Eyebrow raise.
Did you submit toxicology samples for Richard Smith?
Oh,
Yes.
that's so
Did he
dumb.
have anything in his system?
He had lidocaine and metoprolol in his urine.
Okay. And what is metoprolol?
Metoprolol is I think it's a beta blocker that people get for blood pressure.
And what is lidocaine?
Lidocaine is an anesthetic, but it can be used for other things as well.
Iocane powder.
Did you have medical records reflecting that that Richard Smith was diabetic?
Yes, I have written on his diagnosis sheet that he did have a clinical history of diabetes mellitus.
And can that affect digestion?
Diabetes.
It can affect digestion. It can affect gastric emptying time.
So let's talk about time of death.
Okay.
Unless a death is caught on video,
Is
with a
the time of
timestamp,
death something
where there's an
funny,
eyewitness
prosecutor?
for the watch. How
It's funny
easy
for
or
us, but
difficult
not
is
you.
it to pinpoint time of death?
It's impossible to do it with any accuracy.
Generally,
Now, you
or in
said
this
your job
case?
is to determine cause of death and manner of death. Is it necessary for you to determine time of death for your purposes as a medical examiner?
No, it's not. Only I will offer a theory on time of death when asked, but it is not within the realm of my duties on every case.
Okay. Now, if we annoying lawyers ask you to kind of help with time of death, what are some things that you look at?
There are a few things that we can use as medical examiners to look at time of death. Rigor mortis is the stiffening of the muscles that has an onset within probably 20 minutes. And so there's a range of rigor mortis timing in a nice room temperature controlled room with your average.
She is not the brightest medical exam. The room temperature controlled room. Are you listening to yourself, woman? The bullet could have been shot from 11 miles away. The room temperature controlled room.
Decedent. The rigor mortis is, again, that stiffening of the muscles. It'll take 12 hours to set it up fully. It then lasts fully for 12 hours and then it dissipates for 12 hours. So it's a 36-hour range of time. Then there's livor mortis, which is the darkening of the dependent areas of the body after death.
Livor, not
leakage
liver.
of hemoglobin and from the red blood cells.
Livor
That's why it
mortis.
has that sort of purplish, reddish stain to
Liver
it.
mortis. Well, I say vor
There's
dire,
also,
so
with liver
I'll
mortis, there's a
take liver
period where
mortis.
it will blanch, meaning you put your finger in it and it turns white. But then after so many hours have gone by, you put your finger in it and it doesn't change color at all. So there's that time, which is very...
is it supposed to
people,
change color if you put your finger in
say
it?
different times for that. But 8 hours is a rule of thumb. And then there's the temperature after death. After death, your body
Siobhan,
will
what's up?
cool, assuming you're in a room that is cooler than body temperature. So
Man, this
at
room's
what
cool.
rate does a body cool? If we knew that answer, we could determine the time of death on everyone. The problem is we don't know the rate at which bodies cool.
Tigger
Different
mortis.
bodies will cool at different rates. And different bodies will cool at different rates inside of different temperature
Bastien,
rooms.
5 minutes in the
So
penalty
if
box
you're-
for instigating. That
Find
joke
yourself
crossed
dead
the
inside
line.
an igloo, your body temperature will cool rapidly.
Adara, the wholesome crinkle fries.
Much
worst
more rapidly
fries.
than a
Ferret did us
person
a
who
favor.
finds himself dead in a sauna or an oven. That person's body temperature may never cool
Well, see, that's kind of what they were kind of in a sauna oven. They were locked up in a Florida house with no air conditioning at the end of July for 4 days under piles of blankets and clothes. So it was kind of like a little oveny sauna in there.
Because the oven is probably hotter than the body temperature.
Nice one.
So there have been many attempts at gauging time of death, guessing time of death using body temperature. And I'm just going to say it's inaccurate, doesn't work. I have used it simply because these annoying lawyers want me to put out something. So I try to here's how I always preface it. The time of death occurred between the time he was last known alive and the time he was found. I can guarantee you that. Anything else, I have no guarantee.
Oh, that was pretty flippant.
Let
Died
me
sometime.
ask you this, your sauna example. So if someone died in a sauna and the temperature was 99.6 degrees, is that person's body temperature ever going to change?
No.
98.6.
Like, the saunas have those rocks in there that are hot.
What if it's wearing a
temperature of
Sonichu
everything
medallion?
that's in that room?
Now, was the body temperature of John Smith taken in this case?
John's body temperature was taken, yes.
And was it helpful in determining time of death for him?
Yeah, he died sometime between his birth and now.
Was the body temperature of Richard Smith taken?
Yes.
And was it helpful in determining the time of death?
It was not.
Now, was the body temperature of Von Seal Smith taken?
No.
And why not?
The office had a policy where the body temperatures in decomposed people would not be taken simply because a decomposed body would already have equilibrated with the environmental temperature. So she was considered decomposed because she was obviously more along than John and Richard. So her body temperature was not taken at scene.
Now, the rigor mortis that you talked about and the liver mortis, are each of those factors variable?
Yes, they are variable. So I told you about the 12-hour range for the rigor mortis. Well, even that is affected by many, many different things. Temperature of the room, for example.
And same with the liver mortis?
Yes.
Liver.
Based on your knowledge in this case, your autopsy and your training and experience, are Richard, John, and Von Seal's date of death consistent with Tuesday, July 28, 2015?
I believe so.
Okay. And what were some of the factors that you looked at outside of rigor mortis, liver mortis, and body temperature?
Tigger mortis.
Well, the autopsy, I must step back and say an autopsy is not just cutting a person and looking on the inside. An autopsy includes an investigation into
We have
the
cool people in
pre-terminal
chat.
circumstances. So I knew certain things about the investigation, and one of which was
She
that
does
Von
remind me
Seal
of
had a
Nellie from
pill
Little House on the
counter.
Prairie, like a lot.
She took every pill in her pill counter except for Tuesday evening. I also knew that there had been a doctor's appointment that had been missed on Wednesday morning.
And Dr. Maynard, did you give a deposition in this case?
Yes.
What was the date of your deposition?
The date of my deposition was December 9th, 2016.
Hurry up, Sarah Palin. We got to get to the witchcraft guy.
To your knowledge, was that the first time that you had discussed time of death, body temperatures, things of that nature with the lawyers?
Yes.
Those are my questions. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. Now Nellie's going to get cross-examined by diabetes. And then in about 20 minutes, we will start. We're going to do the witchcraft. We're going to do the Wiccan high priest today. So, come hell or high water. Go with the Raven Livermore. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious something about corn. Never mind. I tried. I couldn't think fast enough. Sorry. Ma'am, do you have diabetes? No, we got Beats with Dre guy. He's back there in the court again. Really good.
Dr. Minyard.
Yes,
do you
sir.
suck?
You were previously
You
the
stupid.
pathologist here in Pensacola, right?
That's right.
And you're now working in Naples.
That's correct.
At the time you did the autopsies on the 3 Smiths, you were the medical examiner here. Is that right?
That's right.
And you don't know who killed these people.
No, I don't.
There you go. The end. No further questions.
And the hammer that Ms. Jensen referred to, you don't know for sure that that's the right hammer.
I do not.
What was
Run
the
with it,
body
bro.
temperature of Richard when you measured it at the morgue?
It was
I'm
measured.
sorry, at the autopsy.
It was measured on scene,
Okay.
and that temperature was 82.6 degrees.
Hey, 82.6.
And what
It's
was
good
it on
to
John?
have you
On
back
the
again.
scene?
Oh, hey,
On John
82.6.
at scene.
I've had that poem memorized since 8th grade. Because we had to memorize it in 8th grade, and I was always a huge Poe fan anyway. So, and stick around, young Black economist, because this October we will be doing my annual Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft readings, and the Raven will start us off.
83.9 degrees.
And you said you didn't take one on Von Sealsmith.
That's correct.
Not you, but your.
You can't
People
take
who
the
work
temperature of a puddle of
Correct.
goo, sir.
Now, the people that work for you, they turned over Richard Smith's body, did they not?
I don't specifically recall.
They rolled him over and said, "Sleep well and dream of large women."
Was the folks that worked for you or someone else, can we agree that Richard Smith was turned over at the crime scene?
Yes, sir.
And it would have been either by your agents or by crime scene?
Yes, sir.
In Fahrenheit, it's a 98.6.
Is it important to make a determination as to what the room temperature is when bodies are discovered?
Yes, it is.
And
Oh,
why
hell.
is that
I bet
important?
Burns Night is a
Well, as we
blast in your
discussed
town,
earlier,
man.
room temperature.
That's my goal. That's my goal, Alan. I didn't know you were there. That's one of my goals. That's one of my bucket lists, is to celebrate Burns Night right there.
Will control how quickly or how slowly your body will cool after you die.
And what was the room temperature where these bodies were found?
The room temperature was recorded at 72.2 degrees.
72.2?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's right. I think they said that the police turned on the air conditioning when they got there because they were fuck ups.
And do you have any special instrument to make that determination?
Yes, it's called
No,
a
sir.
thermometer, sir.
Thermometer.
Right.
With the room temperature of 72.2 degrees, how quickly should bodies cool?
Well, it's not only dependent on room temperature. So I can't answer the question because
What else is it dependent upon?
it depends on how many clothes you have on. It depends on how heavy you are. It depends on if you're on certain medications.
What if you were fat like me?
It depends on
doctor?
if you've been under extreme stress prior to dying.
What? Really? Cool.
It depends on your age and
Would
your
being
height.
bashed
and
in the
your
head
weight.
with a hammer be a cause for a great amount of stress? Just asking for a friend.
Okay, in this case, what medication was John on?
I did not bring a list of the medications.
Martico True has asked an important question. Any chance of raising the audio playback to 1.5? No, because this is Court TV's website. They don't have a speed function. If it was on YouTube, we could speed it up. Dear God, I wish we could speed it up, but we're locked into normal speed.
How about Richard?
No, for none of them.
Okay. Now, when you did the autopsy, would you not have been able to determine what medications are on by toxicology?
Yes.
But you just don't have that information.
Well, the toxicology came back for nothing detected except for the diphenhydramine in John.
And what is diphenhydramine?
The Benadryl.
Okay.
And for Richard, the lidocaine and the metoprolol.
And what is metoprolol?
The beta blocker.
I can't
for high blood
remember.
pressure.
You and Alan Walsh
And
must be
for
neighbors.
Von Seal, it was Benadryl in the liver. Oh, and ethanol in the liver as well.
Ethanol. He was
And
drunk.
that's alcohol.
That's alcohol, yes, sir.
He was drunk and doing drugs.
If there were any other medications taken, wouldn't they have been reflected either in the blood or in the liver?
Well, that is the theory, yes.
Well, I mean, it is or it isn't.
It depends, I
Stuck
guess,
it.
on how long the drug takes to metabolize in the body and how sensitive the tests are at the laboratory.
Okay. And do you have good laboratory tests when you worked here?
The laboratory that we were using is in Gainesville, Florida.
Okay. Was it a good lab?
Yes,
You wouldn't have used it if it wasn't, right?
right.
And if any pills had recently been taken, would they not have been in the stomach content?
Yes, that's accurate. If you take a pill and it's, a few minutes later and then you die and I'm seeing your stomach contents, then yes, there could be pill.
And you didn't find any pills in the stomach contents?
No, I didn't.
And if pills weren't in the stomach contents, then they would have been metabolized.
Now, if you're talking to me about a pill and identifying a pill, but a pill can dissolve and not look like a pill anymore. So while I didn't see a pill, the dissolving pill could still be there and I would never know.
Would it at some point not be, when it dissolves, be in the blood or get to the liver?
Well, it dissolves first in the stomach because of the acid in the stomach and the churning, and then it starts to go into the small intestine where absorption would take place. Some does take place in the stomach, but not all.
Do you check for that?
No, there's no way for me to check for that.
How about in the liver or in the small intestines?
As far as whether or not the drug is,
If there's any drug in,
the only way I can check is to send those specimens off and have them tested at the laboratory.
did you do that in this case?
Did I send the specimens off?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I did.
And did they return with any drugs in any of the organs other than the ones we've already talked about?
Not
No.
other than what we've already talked about.
No, the ferret was never caught, but we do have the one artist's rendition of Witchcraft ferret armed with a hammer. This is our suspect as best we can
When
tell.
a person dies,
If you see this person, please alert the police.
and are there various bugs or other creatures that start maggots, that sort of thing, that come from the body?
No, there's not that spontaneous generation of maggots from the body. The bugs have to
There's no spontaneous generation of maggots. Didn't we do away with that? Like, when the hell did we do away with that? Like in the 1600s, the 1500s? When did we decide that maggots didn't spontaneously generate from meat? I think it was the 1600s, wasn't it?
actually have access to the body to lay their eggs before you'll see a maggot.
Okay. And how long does that take?
Oh, it doesn't take very long, within 24 hours.
And how long till the maggots form?
Well, the fly can lay the eggs on the skin immediately. And then those flies take, depending on what type of species you're talking about, it doesn't take longer than 24 hours for those to hatch into maggots or larvae.
Did you find any maggots on any of these 3 bodies?
No, I
Holy shit. It was the idea of spontaneous generation of living creatures from non-living material was challenged in the 17th and 18th century, but it was Louis Pasteur who debunked that. I didn't realize that was Louis Pasteur who did that. Also, the Irish physicist John Tyndall. So the 1800s. Wow. I had nary a clue.
did not.
And as I understand it, if someone dies,
ferrets are just
they're
kind
not
of
immediately
anorexic
taken
raccoons.
to, I guess, the morgue where it's nice and cold, you're going to have flies land on that body, lay their eggs, which turn into maggots. Is that correct?
Well, if the flies can reach the body, yes.
Okay.
And if there is a fly.
We're in Florida. Are there flies all over?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Have you ever done autopsies on anyone where there has been a family pet who has
a ferret
eaten or chewed on the body?
A ferret?
Yes, sir.
That's fairly common, isn't it?
That's ferretly common?
It's not uncommon. I wouldn't say it's 100% of the time. I would like to think that my cat would not eat me. But there,
in reality, if the cat's hungry,
I've seen animals that hold out. They never do. But then I've seen them go to
There
town
you
too.
Go to
So
town.
it's not every animal.
but it's not unusual for a family pet after some time to chew on a body.
That's right.
And whether they eat it or they nibble it or something, but you've seen animal marks on bodies, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you find any of that on these 3 bodies?
No.
My dogs would eat me to, I'm just, I'd be like, more food.
You indicated to me that the room temperature where the bodies were found was 72.2.
They're coming to get you,
72.2, yes, sir.
Barbara.
It is important, as I understand it, and I obviously could be wrong, but it's important from the perspective of the medical examiner's office that the room temperature be kept the same until your investigators or your agents get
Yes, they
finished
found the
with
pinky.
looking at the body, doing whatever they do with the bodies, and then removing the bodies. Is that correct?
Okay.
My
They're coming to
investigators are
get you.
not in charge of the scene.
Werewolf.
But
So
they-
we really don't have a say in that.
Well, you want it to be the same as when the bodies are discovered, don't you? I mean, isn't that preferable?
I want it to be recorded, but I certainly don't want to make people work in 90-degree temperatures when it's easy to put them at 70-degree temperatures. As long as it's recorded and have a picture of it at 90, then I would hate for my people to work.
Okay, that's fine. What you're saying is it's important for you to know exactly what the temperature is when the bodies are discovered.
What you're saying is you would
After
hate
that,
for your workers
temperature
not to
needs
fuck
be
with a crime
changed.
scene, right?
Then you have no objection to it being changed.
Yes, sir.
But it is important to know exactly what it is at the time the bodies are discovered.
Yes, sir.
And is it not generally true that if the temperature were to have
Peachy
been
peaches,
changed
what's
prior to your agents or investigators arriving, someone should tell them, hey, this is what it was and we've moved it down.
Oh, got a
Yes,
Tom
sir.
Jones blast
And
here.
that's pretty common.
It's not
in your
unusual to make
business.
lunch
Yes.
of anyone.
And you expect on a good crime scene that would be relayed to
On a good
your
crime
people.
scene.
I would hope so, yes.
Ladies and germs, we have to pause this regularly scheduled program to bring you Duncan, Idaho, gifting 5 Legal Vices memberships. Woohoo! Irish Rover, Ronan Farheit, Peachy Peaches, Squid Pro Quo. What's up, Squiddy McGee? Good to see you here. And Young Black Economist, welcome. You are now members. You all got memberships gifted by Duncan, Idaho. Make sure you give Duncan, Idaho a super special thanks and stay tuned. Hit that subscribe and notification button so that you can be alerted to our members only stream, likely coming up this Sunday morning U.S. time. That's where I just turn it over to you and we hang out for about an hour and it's all you. All right, there we go. Thank you very much, Duncan, Idaho. We got 10 more minutes of her, and then it's the Wiccan High Priest we've been waiting 11 weeks for. Woo woo!
And that's when you were the medical examiner for the first judicial circuit. That's the way it ran, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were there in 2015.
Yes.
Now, are you able to determine, and I may be asking you more TV questions than real questions, so correct me if I'm wrong, but are you able to determine on the cut marks on the necks as to whether the person is right-handed or left-handed?
No.
Really? I think you can.
Can't you tell by the direction of the cut?
I think you
the
can,
entry?
or you
It
just
would
suck at
depend
your
on
job.
where the assailant was standing in relation to the victim. If he's standing behind, it would change handedness
Good point.
if you actually stood in front.
What if they stood behind Von Seal and John?
Behind,
What would be the direction?
You did. Oh,
you said Von Seal and John?
Yes, ma'am.
Von Seal's injury only went from the front to the back.
always go front to back.
So there really was not a left or a right deviation. John's went from front to back and downwards, but also left to right. So with
be
John, it was
right-handed
left
from
to
behind.
right.
So
So
if you're behind John,
if
it
you're
would be a right-handed.
if you're behind John, I can picture that it would be easy to go left to right in a stabbing motion. Yes,
Oh!
So it'd
with
be
the
a
right
right-handed
hand.
person
And that's
Shit.
speculation.
in front, it would be a left-handed person. Just the opposite if you're in front.
Well, it depends. You could still grasp it with your right hand in the front and pull it around towards the front of the person like that.
Then you were
See, now you regulars, you OG regulars know that we've had the stabbing motion video clip. I had deleted that a couple of weeks ago because I never thought I would have the opportunity to use it again. And here she said stabbing motion. Damn it. So no stabbing motion video clip for you.
really can't tell.
You really can't.
We're just guessing at this point.
Yeah, speculating.
So we can't tell that. Are you able to tell the height of the person who committed the damage to both Von Seal and John?
No, because they both could have been seated when they were attacked.
You don't know if they were or they weren't.
That's correct.
As to Richard. Now, Richard was shot in, was it the right ear?
Yes.
In the right ear, and the bullet traveled subcutaneously,
Correct.
and then it exited somewhere in the upper part of his neck.
Yes, the base of his scalp. Yeah.
Is there any way of, and was that wound was from at least 2 feet away?
Yes, it was.
You call that a distance wound,
I did.
but the distance could be 2 feet to
11
infinity,
miles.
I guess.
Yeah, he could have been shot from 11 miles away, she testified.
In the way you gauge them, is that
That's
right?
That's correct.
So
Good luck, Tim.
Based upon that gunshot, can you tell whether the downward angle or how did that happen?
I can tell you that I measured the entrance was 5 inches from the top of the head, and in the exit was also 5 inches from the top of the head. So there really was no up or
So it
down.
was pretty straight.
Right.
So you couldn't tell the height of the person doing the shooting.
No, I would never say that. I mean, I would never be able to say the height. All that has to happen is the end of the barrel has to line up with that wound path and that wound direction. A person could be hanging from the ceiling and shoot someone and
God.
cause that same wound.
She likes these weird comparisons.
Could Richard have died from that gunshot wound?
If he could have died, it would have been not immediate, in my opinion. It would have been caused by swelling of the brain because of the force associated with the bullet going so close to his head. It's possible that he may have had such severe swelling of the brain that he may have passed.
Would the shock waves have done anything to him?
Shock waves?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
What
The
we're talking
shock
about,
wave
shock wave.
of going past his skin and so close to the brain, and those shock waves may have affected his brain and caused injury and swelling.
Could they have knocked him out?
I believe so.
Shock waves.
Von Seal Smith weighed, I think you said 234 pounds and was about 5'11", give or take.
Yeah, a little less than 6 feet, and she weighed 234.
That's a heavy person to move once they're deceased. Did you see any marks on her wrists or her forearms or any drag marks on her chest that would be indicative of her being drugged down a hallway on carpet?
I saw on her skin a lot of drying because of the decomposition process.
Didn't she also have psoriasis?
What does that
I
have to
don't,
do
I
with
don't know.
anything?
I only have that she has clinical history of diabetes, just like
You.
Richard, I think.
Oh.
I did notice on her right wrist that she had an abrasion, which is a scrape. You saw the injuries of the left palm, although that doesn't really fall in line with your description of what I'm looking for. She did have on the lateral left posterior leg, a small dried red abrasion. And the bottom of the right third toe had a small red abraded contusion. So it's not something that I could say with certainty, because sometimes the skin in its nature is to decompose, and that will hide drag marks and other injuries as well.
So you didn't see any when you did the autopsy?
Not so great that I could say, oh my gosh, take a look at this.
Generally, though, wouldn't you have drag marks if you were drugged down a carpet?
Well, you could, unless you're dragged on the carpet. Maybe just, that you're lying on the carpet and the carpet is the one that's moving.
Woman.
With all this questioning being said and going on and on, you still can't say who did the murders of these 3 people.
No, sir.
Thank you.
ma'am.
No
I don't
further
have
questions.
anything further.
You're welcome.
Dr. Minute, are you aware that the crime scene technicians are not allowed to move a body until someone responds from your office?
I'm aware of that rule, but I've also seen it broken many times.
Okay.
That's why
Now,
we're making fun.
There was testimony that the deaths of John and Richard were pronounced at 11:14 a.m. and the death of Von Steele was pronounced at 11:17 a.m. What time did your investigator arrive on scene?
My investigator arrived at 1600, so 4:00 p.m.
Okay. And then what time did your investigator record the body temperature of John?
She recorded the body temperature at 1749, which is 5:49 p.m.
Okay. And then what about the body temperature for Richard?
Doggo camel return when doggos return.
1718, which is 5:18 p.m.
Okay. So your investigator didn't take the temperatures or record the temperatures until about 6 to 7 hours after they'd been pronounced deceased.
Correct.
Now, you talked about alcohol or ethanol. Does that necessarily mean that they were drinking alcohol, or where else do you see ethanol?
We see ethanol very, very commonly in decomposed people. It's the bacteria that start to go crazy after death, and it produces.
So what if they were drinking? They were still
internal
horribly murdered.
alcohol.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Those are all my questions.
You're welcome.
All right, step down, Doc.
Thank you, sir.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've been waiting for 11 long weeks. We are now going to hear from Wiccan Minister Paul Larson. Here we go. People are fermented. Dun, dun, dun. In our guest, that's right, people. Here we are, the moment we've all been waiting for. I should end this and start it next week, but that would just be mean of me, wouldn't it? So we finally got here. We finally got to the Wiccan. They called him the Wiccan High Priest. This just says Wiccan Minister. So where's our Wiccans in chat when we need them? Where's our Wiccans to tell us, are they high priests or ministers? Or both? All right. Well, let's see here. We are all caught up with everything. So let's see. Let me do some lawyer math here real quick. And Sonny. That looks like we're $25 away from unlocking achievement number 2. Sweet. Are we going to get to the number 2 goal or not? Let me update the scrolling banner here to reflect our new witness. Dun dun dun. There we go. Control V. Wiccan Minister Paul Larson. Dun dun dun. Here we go. Now this guy looks like 263% less Wiccan than the defendant.
For the court, spell your last name for the
time out. Whoa, we gotta call. Okay, that's a really unfortunate pause place. But people, this is now the defense's witness. They didn't go through the state resting the case part of the audio, but the This is starting out with the defense asking questions. This is no longer the prosecution's case. The prosecution has rested. And to be frank, I don't think they proved their case. There's a whole bunch of we don't knows, and there's a whole bunch of murdery looking things, but I don't think they did enough to show that that he was the one that committed the murders. The only thing they had was the prison snitch. That's it. The DNA stuff, his DNA is on this, his DNA is on that. He was at the house at least every Tuesday, and he was at the house the day the murders occurred. Circumstantially, that makes him the last ones to see them alive. But the prison snitch is the only one that connected him to the deaths. So I don't think they did it, but I kind of have a sneaky suspicion what the jurors are going to do. And for those of you in Utah and or current or former Morms, tell me this is not Gordon B. Hinckley on the stand. If you know, you know. All right, people. Let me update the banner to say that this is now the defense case. All right, I have to edit that. Defense case. Right. Can we pump the ferret stomach? We got to find the ferrets first. All right, here we go.
For the court reporter,
Dennis Keith Waller.
What?
Waller.
Wait, what?
And
Dennis, who the hell are you? Where'd the Wiccan Minister go? Come on. This is a police practices consultant guy. Oh, come on. This must be okay. This guy looks slightly Wiccan-y. This guy looks Wiccan-y, but how? Oh, come on. Oh, he's happy about something. Now he's sad about something. Oh no. I'm sorry. I just want to look at this. I just want to look at this freeze frame here for just a minute. Oh dear. It's Barry Humphreys, Wiccan Minister. Oh, so police practices guy is on the stand for a very short time. Or is this, or did he just take off his glasses? What the hell's going on? I don't even know what's going on. All right, this is weird. Fine. I don't know what the shit this guy's on the stand for, but it's only for a brief second, so let's go.
if you would, sir, please state your full name for the court, spell your last name for the court reporter.
Dennis Keith Waller.
God dang it, Jill Ames has just dropped Aussie Fitty, and for that you get a big old foghorn. Where's the big old foghorn? Unfortunately, the second achievement is not something that I want. It's the punishment shot. We had the reward shot. Now it's the punishment shot, where I'm just trying to get through bottles of really, really bad whiskey that I would not otherwise drink. Up until a couple of weeks ago, this bottle of Costco Kirkland brand distilled blended Scotch whiskey had not been touched for about 6 years. Oh, thank you, Jill, but no thank you. Oh my. This is really, really bad. I used to think this was good. Shame on my palate. When I first started drinking whiskey, I thought that was the shit. Now it's just shit. Thank you, Jill Ems, for getting us to unlocking the second achievement of the night. Ugh. God. Reflux. I can't breathe. Okay. Oh, that made me sweat. That was like insta sweat. All right. Thank you very, very much. Blah. So, all right. This guy is apparently on the stand for about 3 minutes. So let's just run with it.
Waller.
Waller.
And what is your profession or occupation?
Currently, I do consulting and sometimes expert witness testimony on police practices matters primarily related to police litigation.
And what is your both professional and educational background to allow you to testify?
I hate cops.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Police Administration from Michigan State University. I have a master's degree in Public Administration from Florida International University. I was in law enforcement for, I think, about 16, 17 years. I served as a police officer, a detective.
Oh, no,
sergeant,
Eileen.
lieutenant.
This is only the
department
second
training
achievement
officer,
punishment shot.
Field training officer.
The third
SWAT
one gets
team.
better.
I was
So.
chief in 2 different locations or jurisdictions. Also, I was a director of law enforcement training, a regional police training academy in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. I've also served as a police academy instructor in a variety of disciplines, including criminal investigation and the various aspects involved in that, death investigation, and even use of informants.
And where have you taught?
I've taught at Craven Community College.
What did I recommend? I can't remember what I recommended for you.
And at Craven Community College, I was
Basil
the
Hayden?
coordinator or department chair of the criminal justice program. At Wake Technical College, I was in the police, a police science instructor, also the director of law enforcement training. I taught for a couple of years at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, and one of my primary courses was criminal and
Your father didn't like Basil Hayden. He preferred Crown to Basil Hayden. I'm sorry, Ronan. You need a new father.
investigation. And I've taught as an adjunct instructor in probably
I taught putty tests.
6 or 7 different colleges and universities. And in many of those, it was criminal investigation. And when I taught criminal investigation,
It's
a big
only
component of that is the use of informants.
In addition to teaching,
he's gonna talk about the police practices of having shitty, untrustworthy prison informants. I believe his job is to crush the prison snitch, but he doesn't have a lot of time.
At the college level, have you taught law enforcement officers?
I have, and also as a detective, I was trained in utilizing informants, and also
Marianne is typing in Scottish. Alan, can you help us out?
I was also, as chief of police in Ripon, Wisconsin, we were a member of a tri-county drug unit. I was on the board of that, and the board members approved the use of various informants for drug cases. And we also approved the different drug investigations that our investigators and undercover people were conducting.
When informants are used.
Yep, he's going after the informant.
Did you have, or are there any criteria for the use of informants?
Yes. I mean, you have to question an informant's motive and determine if they're reliable or not. I mean, before you can use an informant to gain a search warrant or an arrest warrant, you have to make a determination of their reliability.
Incredibly unreliable.
informants who are aware of criminal matters generally do not come forth and just volunteer their information. They have a motive. They expect something in return. And you have to make a determination of what that is and if the information that they give you is reliable.
And is this true in using informants in courtroom settings as well?
Are you talking about jailhouse informants?
Yes, sir.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the state of Illinois
Dracula.
did the Northwestern University College of Law did a study of wrongful convictions, and they determined that I think 46%, almost half of the wrongful convictions were caused by the significant cause was the use or improper use of informants.
No. You got to watch him talk. We're not going to fast forward through this guy.
I don't have anything further.
Well,
We're on this, we're just talking about this particular issue. Obviously, when he testifies, I'm going to have numerous other questions.
I don't know if he's gone far enough for me to understand the totality of what his opinion.
Okay, this is just they're voir diring him. They're conducting voir dire of him. This wasn't his testimony as a witness. This was just doing the initial voir dire to qualify him as an expert. And it's not pronounced voir dire, it's voir dire. And that's ask any lawyer from the West and from the Southeast. They conduct voir dire of people. And Dexter back here, his disguise ain't working. We all know that's Dexter. Dexter off the family because they needed offing. All right. Nope, I have not seen any Dublin or anything. You cannot send me a bottle, and it's not available here. I have checked. So you have Dexter's got a bad deal here. Chet from Weird Science is chonked out here in the back, and Sarah Palin is doing her thing. So yeah, that was just the voir dire of the witness to qualify him as an expert. He'll be back. Bet y'all can't wait for that.
Based upon that, do you have an opinion about the use of informants?
I do.
And what is that opinion?
Basically, they should be considered unreliable until they prove otherwise, and you determine their motivation.
Oh, Irish whiskey is fantastic. Very, very buttercreamy and lots of vanilla. Oh, come on. Redbreast. Oh, my God.
Okay.
Bushmills 10-year is very, very apple forward. Oh, there's some amazing Irish whiskeys out there. Judge Teller just wants to move it along.
A witness cannot express an opinion regarding the credibility of another witness. Did you get all that? I'm citing Callaway v. State, 210 Southern 3rd, 1160. Quote, experts may not comment on the credibility of other witnesses. This is a question for the jury judge as to the credibility of Mr. Purefoy in this case. And this witness cannot give his opinion as to the credibility of Mr. Purefoy or any other witness for that matter. There's a jury instruction that is on point as to the credibility of witnesses.
He's got a point.
Criminal case, and that's what the jury is to use to weigh that.
He does have a point there.
We didn't specifically direct it towards Mr. Purefoy. We talked about informants in general terms, and we did not comment on Mr. Purefoy's testimony.
He's got a point there, too.
The only issues that Mr. Waller raised was to look at their motives and also the reliability.
But that can be covered in a jury instruction.
Comment specifically on Mr. Purefoy's testimony.
So I don't think.
Well, it seems to me it's going directly at it. It's saying in the class that informants are not to be believed, and that's obviously a jury question. It's obviously something to be subject to fair argument and closing. Much less, I haven't heard anything about how these expert opinions were determined, what studies, what the data was, what went into it, whether it's ever been allowed to render such an opinion in a Florida court.
Do you have the study with you?
I do. I don't want to study. Anybody can read study. I would say what would be the data to support. I'm not asking them to say it, but besides there's a study that says it, I can run a study to check anything.
Or you can do that with any expert witness, Your Honor.
Right. Now, but also this goes to a whole unique issue of credibility of a witness. You could, I mean, be like a witness coming in here and saying police officers are known to be unreliable and be untruthful. That would clearly be admissible. Or to come here and say people who are on trial are clearly untruthful. That's a jury question.
No, and this,
Yeah, well,
Plain and obvious within the
you're losing this one, defense.
each individual juror to weigh. I mean, the possible motives are out there. You examine it during cross-examination. But go ahead.
if I could, no, I'm not arguing with your ruling, but I'm going to lay up my record, Judge. Mr. Waller, could you refer to specifically that Northwestern Law School University report? When was it rendered?
The survey was conducted 2004, 2005.
And what was the name of the article?
The snitch system.
Bitch snitch.
Well, I can guarantee you that name will never come in.
Well,
because it's prejudicial and inappropriate for a court setting. But you could have same thing with the defendants. On average, are defendant caught with drugs in their possession, will they be truthful about the nature of the possession? There'd never be a witness allowed to come in and say that, give an opinion. That's a jury question. The attorneys can argue the motive.
No, this is Wilford Brimley's witness.
But anyway, I'm going to sustain the state's objection.
okay.
Rule that opinion.
He's like, holy fuck, I
As to
won.
that
I won,
particular
holy
issue.
shit.
Opinion about the believability of the informant.
We would ask that also apply to any mention of this law school report from 2004 to 2005.
I don't believe it have any other.
You mean the snitch system?
Yeah.
He's like, holy shit, I won. I won a motion. Yes, mom, I won a motion.
Right, thank you.
Paul C. Larson.
There we
LAR.
go. Here's here we are. Here is Sir Les Patterson, Wiccan high priest, who is going to testify now. All right, let me put the banner back up. Where are we at here? There we are. Let's hear what Sir Les Patterson has to say.
SON.
No, we're starting
And
right now, Flux.
If you could, sir, please
This is
give
him.
us your educational background.
None.
I have a PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Utah in 1977 and a Juris Doctor degree from DePaul University in 1993.
Traitor, you should have gone to University of Utah Law. That's where all the real cool lawyers go, dumbass. Hey, my homie, pour one out for my homie, the Utah Wiccan priest guy from my law school alma mater, the University of Utah. Hey, he's a homeboy. But then he decided not to get his law degree at one of the greatest law schools on planet Earth, University of Utah.
And in addition to that educational background, can you tell us what your profession has been?
In addition to that, I'm also an ordained minister in Circle Sanctuary, which is one of the nation's oldest Wiccan churches, chartered in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay. And have you been a professor or have you taught at the university or college level?
I have. I am currently retired, but I still hold rank as Professor Emeritus at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, where I taught for 22 years.
And what did you do at the Chicago School? What was your teaching involved?
I was hired to teach health psychology because my clinical experience as a psychologist was mostly in working with medical cases and disabilities. But then I broadened and was able to teach most of the other courses in the curriculum, including the history of philosophy of psychology, social psychology, cognitive psychology, and others.
did you teach any religion courses?
Yes, we had for a brief time a concentration in psychology and spirituality, and I taught a course on psychology and spirituality for that.
And have you ever been in the Wicca religion? Are you prayer leaders?
Wicca?
What is the proper terminology?
I'm an ordained minister in Circle Sanctuary, which is a Wiccan church, and I have served for 10 years up until July of 2019 as the designated religious group leader at the Racine Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, which is an adult facility, and for 2.5 years at the Recruit Training Command at Great Lakes Naval Station.
Wait, so Wiccan dude is like the chaplain at one of the Navy boot camps? All right.
The power of Christ compels you.
So was that the United States Navy that had you there?
Yes, it was.
Now, can you explain to the jury what the Wicca religion is? Give them a little history and tell them what the Wicca religion is.
Yes. The short answer is that the Wiccan religion is a modern religious movement
that doesn't know how to straighten
that
their
takes its
ties.
inspiration from the pre-Christian religions of the ancient world. It's part of what I call a very broad umbrella group that is known perhaps better as paganism, or some groups prefer the term heathen. But I think the best way of describing it is really how it is billed at Naval Station Great Lakes, which is earth-based spirituality. The common thread for not only Wicca, but Druidry and ceremonial magic and modern shamanism and several other groups that would fall under that umbrella is all taking nature to be divine. Rather than seeing nature as something created by a God outside of nature, we see the divine as within nature. The divine is the sun, the moon, the earth, the sky, the seas, the mountains, all of those things participate in the divine. And I think that would be a common belief in Wicca, in Druidry, in all of the other groups that would fall under that umbrella.
Well, Ronan Varhai says, if he were a Baptist preacher, would they ask him to detail the tenets of his faith? Well, he wouldn't be testifying if he was a Baptist preacher. The whole idea is the prison snitch said, "Ooh, we were all scared of him because he was a witch, and he was always talking about witchy spell casting things, and he told me that he killed him in a ritualistic manner." And so now the defense is putting an actual Wiccan on, and I think he was dabbling in Wiccanism because his house sort of looked like a stereotypical like Wiccan supply hut. But they're putting this guy on to say, no, he's not a Wiccan. The prison snitch is lying. I think that's what they're putting him on here to show. So they have to ask about the beliefs and things.
Would that fall under Native American religions as well?
They would be very similar. In fact, in recent parliaments of the world's religions, there's been a significant movement of commonality between the various representatives of indigenous religions from around the world and the contemporary pagan religious group leaders from Europe and America.
Now, is this what you would call a polytheistic religion as opposed to a monolithic religion?
Or monotheistic.
Monotheistic,
yes.
Excuse me.
Hey, Janet, what's up?
Explain that.
This is the moment we've all been waiting
beginning
for.
First with Zoroastrianism, and then with Judaism, then Christianity, and then Islam. All of those religions are monotheistic. That is, they believe that there is only one God. Most of the religions of the ancient world and many of the indigenous religions of the world believe in many gods, and that's what we call polytheism. And again, the cultures may differ in the names that they call the gods. Perhaps the ancient Greek and Roman gods are more familiar, but also the Norse gods
That is a cool
are also
story.
polytheistic, and the Celtic gods and Egyptian religion and Sumerian and Babylonian and so on.
Now, in this particular case, during an interview of my client by law enforcement, it has been alleged that because my client practiced Wicca, that he would have participated in a sacrifice of the deceased. Is there anything such as sacrificing either of animals or people in the Wicca religion?
No, there is not. There certainly was a tradition of both animal and human sacrifice in the ancient world, but one of the things that characterizes the modern religious world is that we have abandoned completely human sacrifice, and outside of a few
Wicca,
smaller
he's not one of us.
instances, most religions now have abandoned animal sacrifice as well.
That's good.
Does the Wicca religion practice animal sacrifice?
No.
Now, Mr. Hartung in the interview described himself as being a sole practitioner of Wicca. What does that mean?
This is very common. Indeed, I would think most of the people who would identify as pagan or Wiccan or heathen or druid or similar sorts of spirituality, for a better part of their time would have been what's called solitary practitioners. And these are people who come in contact with the beliefs and the practices either through reading books or online, but don't participate in any social groups and don't join a coven or don't participate in any pagan festivals. They simply practice on their own.
Now, it was also suggested at the interview of my client that he murdered his family as a blue moon ritual. Can you tell me if there are any blue moon rituals or any history in the Wiccan religion of sacrifice on the blue moon?
No. We do honor the cycles of the moon, and so it is common for rituals to be performed on the full or the new moon, but they're not the major rituals of the religion.
What type of rituals might these be?
The lunar rituals?
Yes, sir.
They would be simply celebrating the fullness of the moon and the accomplishment of some major task or purpose that the person has been working on. Or if it's a new moon, then it would be used for the starting of a process of spiritual development or some sort of work toward a goal. So either the culmination during the full moon or the beginning of a process in the new moon would be the types of purposes for which rituals are conducted.
Does a blue moon itself, which is 2 full moons in 1 month, does that have any importance to the Wicca religion?
Not at all. I mean, not beyond the fact of its being a full moon, but the blue moon, because of its rarity, is no more important than any other full moon.
I saw you standing alone.
Is there
blue moon
in Wicca a belief in any type of violence?
No.
Is there a theory that what you give out is kind of what you get? What is?
Yes, that is called the law of return. And that's one of the basic ethical principles of the Wiccan religion, is that whatever you put out by way of energy or actions, whether it is good or bad, will come back to you in similar form.
So if, for example, you were to say murder 3 people, then life in prison may come back to you, right? Is something like that? Is that what you're saying? Just asking for a friend.
Now, there was a photograph that was introduced by the state, which is Exhibit 360. And it is a picture of Mr. Hartung's, of a drawer in his home. And there is a book called, it's a blue covered book with a pentagram on the front of it called The Complete Book of Witchcraft by Raymond
Buckland.
Buckland.
Yes.
Couldn't read the last name on here. Can you tell the jury why a Wiccan would have a complete book of witchcraft?
Okay. To do so, I need to talk a little bit about the history of witchcraft. From the anthropological literature, there is no human culture that does not believe in witches and has not accused some people within their culture of witchcraft. And by that typically is meant the use of magic to cause harm to people or crops or bad weather or things like that. And certainly during, in Europe.
Okay, young black criminal asks, is the prosecutor making the case that defendants do crime because of their religion, or just that he's a criminal who happens to practice a religion wrongly? The person speaking now, this is the defense. This is a defense witness. The prosecution, they put on the prison snitch guy. Who said that he was going around telling people he was a witch and that he murdered his family on this blue moon, as a sacrifice because they did bad things. That was the prison snitch. And they also showed lots and lots of pictures of his house with Wiccan paraphernalia around the place. And so now the defense lawyer is putting this guy on the stand to say, look, they don't commit murders. They don't do sacrifices. They don't do rituals involving harming people. So the defense witness is debunking the person. Is debunking the prosecution's prison snitch.
During the 15th through 17th century, there was a witchcraft craze in which literally thousands of women and some men were killed, judicially murdered, having been accused and convicted of witchcraft. Then things calmed down after the mid-1700s, and a more rational approach to alternative spiritualities prevailed. And then it was in 1954 that an Englishman named Gerald Gardner wrote the book Witchcraft Today, in which he posited that the old sort of folk healers and those who studied herbal remedies and did moon rituals and things of that sort were really part of a much older ancient religion. And so he, in his book, set out a modern understanding of witchcraft as a nature-based and earth-centered spirituality. And he coined the term Wicca for the public face of that. Up to that point, and what he was involved in was coven practice, which is a small group that is initiatic. That is, you have to be a member of that group, and you have to be to study before you are initiated into that group, and you are then told the secrets of that group. Modern paganism really begins in the 1970s, when first in America and then throughout Western Europe, Wicca became a public religion, and this coincided with the environmental movement and the second wave feminist movement. So a lot of the early pagan leaders in the 1970s were people who were very strongly influenced by, again, a positive aspect to the environment and a positive aspect to the divinity of female energy. And so what happened was we now are in the phase of public festivals. Our church, Circle Sanctuary, for example, does at least 8 major rituals throughout the year. The 4 solar rituals of the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes. And then there are 4 what are called cross-quarter festivals that are spaced in between the solar festivals. And the largest one of those is the one that occurs during the summer solstice. And this is it's called Pagan Spirit Gathering, and it is in a campground for a week around the summer solstice. And there are anywhere from 800 to 1,100 people, including families and children, that camp out for that purpose. And so this represents this more public face of Wicca, where most of the participants who start out as solitary practitioners eventually do affiliate with these public groups, and some of them then go on to go through the traditional initiatic path and join a small group or a coven.
Now, does the Wiccan religion or the witchcraft of the Wiccan religion have anything to do with the witches that dress all in black with the pointed hats and give out poison apples to kids or anything like that?
No, that's a reflection of Europe in the 1600s, when, again, the pointed hat was a common element of dress. Also, the idea that witches rode broomsticks and the witches had black cats as familiars. All of this is cultural residue from European culture in the 1700s.
Now, I've shown you some photographs of the bodies.
See, that's the problem, young black
the
economist.
Smith household that were murdered.
Is they said, he's a witch, and the murders were committed on a blue moon, and the prison snitch said that he admitted to doing it as part of a ritual. And then you get the conservative Christians down there in Florida going, "Oh my God, he's Wiccan, he's evil, he must be guilty." That's what the prosecution seems to be doing.
Indication that those bodies were placed in any way in a ritualistic manner?
Absolutely none. They were basically haphazardly placed or partially covered up. But this doesn't make any sense from a ritual standpoint. If you were to use a sacrificial victim for a religious purpose, you would want them to be displayed in some way that is surrounded with other ritual elements like incense holders, candles, pentagrams, or other sorts of things like that. And there was none of that at the Smith household. They were all pretty much, as I said, haphazardly arrayed according to the videotape I saw of the crime scene.
And it was also alleged in the interview that the covering of the bodies had something to do with the Wicca religion. Can you tell us about that?
Now, see, I'm not Wiccan, but I would guess that there's probably no rituals that require you to hide sacrificial victims under 19 bags of clothes. I'm just going to go out on a limb and speculate.
That's not true. There's no
Janet can correct me if I'm wrong.
In which an offering or something that is used in a ritual would necessarily be covered. I mean, the whole thing is to expose it to the divine and to bear witness to the act. So why cover up something that you are doing for ritual purposes? It just doesn't make sense.
Would it be fair to say that the allegations that were directed to Mr. Hartung, as I've relayed them to you, are inaccurate?
Absolutely.
And that there's no basis in fact for those?
Yes.
Yes, I'm correct.
You are correct.
Thank
that is
you.
correct.
I like that.
Yes.
I don't have anything further.
How the hell do you cross-examine that? What are you going to go, I mean, really, how do you cross-examine that? But again, now, okay, so he's debunked the Wiccan part of the narrative from the prosecution. Still doesn't mean he didn't kill him. Just means he didn't do it in the name of whatever Wiccan ritual they accused him of doing it in. So yeah, I wonder what's the prosecution? What's the prosecution's cross-examination going to be? Like,
Your Honor, please, huh?
So something like that, or maybe.
Well, Mr. Could you tell the court what color eyes the defendants have?
It's going to be something like that, I think.
Good afternoon.
Just a couple of questions. Did you review the link or the website that the law enforcement referred to?
I was given access through defense counsel to the discovery materials that were given to them.
Right. Did you review the website?
The website. Oh, the No Nonsense Ministries. Yes, I did.
Okay. And I believe you said when we took your deposition that some of it was partially true and then some of it was, I think you said fantasy or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So some of it was partially true, but it was not entirely accurate in your opinion.
It was significantly distorted.
Do you have any particular spells?
Have
or-
you testified as
potions that would help me grow a
Wiccan religion
chin?
before?
No.
Now, when you were talking about rituals, and defense counsel asked you, did the body's placement have any sign of a ritual? And you said, no, absolutely not. Okay.
Yes, I said that.
If the Wiccans don't participate in human sacrifice, then what are you looking for? And what are you basing that opinion on?
Well, how anything would be placed in a ritual context, whether it would be even a live human being or an animal or fruit to be offered or other things to be offered to the divine. Again, the whole nature of ritual is deliberateness and selecting something and some words to say and some gestures and some actions to do that link the human with the divine.
Well, see, and I think that's common for essentially all religions that I'm familiar with. You know, that's why you have podiums. That's why you have altars. That's why you have things, because whatever your offerings are, they're lifted up. They're set above the rest. You're offering them. You wouldn't hide them. You know, I mean, you wouldn't hide your light under a bushel, so to speak. You know, you would offer, you would put up, so you know, like, oh, it's part of our ritual to hide and bury the works from. So I think he's correct, and I think that's true of pretty much, like I said, every religion that I'm familiar with. Everything is a public display. It's you know, hell yeah, you know, the Mayans, they would do their sacrifices on top of the temples.
And there was nothing in the crime scene video that I saw that looked like that.
Yes, sir. You said earlier that the rituals of the Wiccan follow the solstices and moon patterns.
Solstices, equinoxes, and there are 4 festivals that fall halfway in between a solstice and an equinox. And those are known as the cross-quarter festivals.
You testified that the blue moon, the full moon, can you tell the jury just what that is? What's the blue moon?
Well, a blue moon technically is the second full moon in a month. And it's a fairly rare occurrence, occurring several times over several years. But I don't know. I would imagine there's probably 1 full moon a year at least, because there's 13 moons in a 12-month period. But again, there's no specific emphasis on the blue moon as opposed to any other full moon.
And so in the Wiccan religion, it would just be another full moon.
Another full moon, yes.
Now, my understanding of Wiccan is you said that it's a broad umbrella and it encompasses a lot of different types, subsets. Maybe?
Let me correct that. I would use the word pagan or heathen, or again, what the Naval Station Great Lakes actually called our group, which was earth-based spirituality. And I think that is actually much more accurate. Nature-based or earth-based religion. And under that broad umbrella, Wicca would be one of several different groups that fall under that umbrella.
Ella, hey.
Is witchcraft a part of Wicca?
Yes.
Is a Ouija board part of Wicca?
Interesting question.
Not really. It is a divinatory tool that was much more common in late 19th century and first half of the 20th century in America.
Janet, comments?
It's fallen out of favor. It's kind of like a typewriter compared with a computer. The tarot cards, the runes, and other devices are now much more common as oracular or divinatory tools, but the Ouija board is still one of them, an acceptable one. It's slightly dated.
Are ropes used in?
I've never known a Wiccan that used a Ouija board. That's why I would defer to Janet on that, but I've never known a Wiccan to use a Ouija board. Tarot and your runes and things like that, yes, but
Wiccan rituals.
I beg your pardon?
Rope.
Rope?
Yes, sir.
It can be.
What about broom?
A broom?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
What about wands?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the term high priest?
Yes.
What is that?
A high priest is one of two leaders in an initiatic group following Wicca or witchcraft. And I think Druidry also uses the term high priestess or high priest. And there usually are two, a female known as a high priestess and a male known as a high priest.
Here's one of our high priestesses right here.
Is the term witch, is that a female term?
It's mixed.
Okay. Is there a male term that's more appropriate?
Some people use the term wizard. Other people use the term warlock.
I know we talked about, or Mr. Griffith asked you about Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
And there's a book called the Book of Wicca. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Willow Root Wands. Are you familiar with that?
Not very, but I've heard of it.
Witches and Tarot by Ellen Dugan.
Yes.
These are
Tarot
all books
Made
that he
Easy
had
by
on his
Nancy
bookshelf
Guerin.
or in his
I know
drawers.
of it, but I don't use it.
What about sacredsource.com?
I beg your pardon?
Sacredsource.com.
That's a well-known source for statues.
Call them
and other
man
ritual
witches.
implements.
It's more than a
Are you
man
familiar
witch.
with the
It's a
book, The
meal.
Solitary Practitioner.
Yes, by Scott Cunningham.
And
Dude, what are you getting at? How is this proving he's a murderer?
in your study of religion and
You're boring
your
Chum Lee in the
experience
background.
as a
there.
college professor, animal sacrifices, you're familiar with those?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe in your deposition you talked about when maybe a rabbi's blessing food.
I'm not clear what you're getting at
Yeah,
here.
me too, buddy. What are you getting
You
at?
said
Mr. President?
when rabbi slaughters an animal for kosher meat.
Okay. For both the preparation of kosher meat and halal meat, which is the Islamic equivalent,
Right.
the animal's throat is cut.
For the blood to drain out?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, sir. Those are my questions.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. So the link is the victim's throats were cut. Rabbis cut throats. The what I guess would be an imam, I guess. I don't know, that cuts the throats for halal food. So therefore, this was part of a ritual. Dude, that was some serious reaching with that stupid question. But it may have some impact with the jury is the problem.
I'm sorry. For you testifying, what's your hourly rate?
I don't recall. I think it's around 400 an hour.
Okay. And for your preparation for trial?
I think that was 350.
And you know how many hours you got in?
I would have to look at my logbook.
Okay. So you were coming here today to testify, but you don't know how many hours you got in.
I know what I've logged. I don't have it in my memory, but I have it on my computer. And if I
It's the old he's getting
need to,
paid for
I
his
could
testimony, so you can't
retrieve
trust
that
him.
information.
All right. At this point, when you gave your deposition, do you remember being asked that question?
Vaguely.
I'm going to give you a figure, 5,950. Does that sound right?
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me too. Jesus. Oh, God, Dresden Files. Now, I read the first book like years ago, and I just forgot about it until just now. Wow, I got to go back to that series because I read the first book and I really liked it. Jeff, how would you have crossed him? I think I would have tried to question him on the line of stuff he said. We don't do that anymore. Try and tie that to these rituals used to be a thing. I probably wouldn't cross-examine him. It's just weird. Whether he's Wiccan or not, whether it's ritualistic or not, has nothing to do with whether he actually killed the people or not. It doesn't matter if he murdered them as part of some religious sacrifice or whether he just murdered them because they molested his child and wrote him out of the will. It makes no difference at all. It doesn't further the prosecution's case one whit, one way or the other. It's just scare tactics. That's my opinion.
When you were talking,
my cat's name is Karen. Says, why is this guy back in court? This happened back in 2013, didn't it? The murder happened in 2015, and the trial was in 2020. But this is Throwback Thursday. Every Thursday, we do a retro trial, and we've been doing this one for the last 11 weeks. And you'll see it right here on the little scroll across the bottom. This is Throwback Thursday. Florida v. Donald Hartung, the witchcraft ritual murder trial from 2020. So yeah, we're just going back over old trials. Well, this trial should wrap up about 3 weeks from now. So we'll probably get our verdict on the like 3 weeks from today, and then we will move on to another trial.
Talking about kosher meats and halal meats, you weren't talking about doing Wiccan sacrifices, were you?
No, and that's not even considered a sacrifice in either Islam or Judaism. It is a means of meeting the dietary rules.
Of slaughtering animals without causing them pain.
What used to be called a sacrifice in Judaism during the era of the Second Temple before its destruction. That's when animals were sacrificed routinely at the Second Temple. But since the destruction of the temple, there's no formal sacrifices in the sense of killing an animal solely for an offering to the divine. And that's different from killing an animal for food and following either Sharia or halakha, that's Jewish dietary laws, in order to make it appropriate.
For
maybe he killed them for food
to meet
maybe
kosher standards.
Why?
Isn't there's a specific way the rabbi has to slaughter the animal? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
that has to do with slitting its throat to drain the blood out.
Yes.
And a lot of that has to do with going back in time to the cleanliness of the meat, does it not?
It does.
And a lot of the dietary prohibitions on in the Jewish religion and in the Islamic religion has to do with the health and the storage of food back in ancient times.
It does.
So that has nothing to do with any kind of Wicca sacrifice.
No.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Meyer asked you about your pay. You're being paid by the state of Florida through the Judicial Administration Commission, are you not?
I am.
And you submit your time records to them to be paid.
Yes.
Every expert
I'm not paying you directly.
No.
There are prayers in the Wicca religion, right?
There are.
And are they similar to prayers in the Christian religion or in Christianity?
Very similar in that they are addressed to a person or a force, sometimes an impersonal force, but they're oral or can be written.
And one of the main differences, the polytheism versus the monotheism. Is that correct?
Correct.
And are there directions that are important in the Wicca religion? Points of the compass?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury about that?
It's very
Mariko, this is a
common,
jury.
as part of the opening of a ritual to do what's called calling the quarters, in which the officiant will usually face one direction and invite the spirits of that direction and the associated elements with that direction to come into the circle and be present during the ritual, and then go around and do that for all of the four
This is
cardinal
all
directions. And at the end of the
absolutely
ritual,
pointless.
to release those forces.
It's very
and
interesting
thank
from an
them for their
educational
presence
standpoint, but
is also common.
it's
And
useless for
it's
the trial, for
common,
defense
is it
or
not,
prosecution.
for practitioners of Wicca to have their own prayer room?
Yes.
And is that usually in your home?
Yes.
And what does that involve?
That's
room
very
to pray
personal, and it usually involves having some sort of representations of the divine, whether in the form of pictures or statues, as well as things like candles and what is called a wand, or there's a particular ritual dagger called an athame that is also very important in ritual, and all sorts of other ritual implements that might be used for specific purposes, incense, candles, things of that sort.
Now, Mr. Myers asked you about a website.
Yes.
Said part of it was true and part of it was fantasy.
Well, I wouldn't say fantasy, but it was distortion, and what it was aiming at was discrediting most religions. I checked it just before coming down here today, and it advertises itself as an atheistic site. But it has material debunking not only Wicca, but Scientology and Druidry and all sorts of other religions, and has a variety of other accumulated materials, many of which, again, dealing with human sacrifice, are accurate for the ancient world, but the implication of it is that this is still going on now, which is inaccurate and is distortion.
When you talk about the ancient world, what are you talking about?
The pre-Christian world, up until about 500 of the Common Era, when I think it was the Emperor Justinian closed down the pagan temples and made and forbade the practice of pagan religion.
You said that that website was an atheistic website?
On the very front page, it has that phrase, yes.
And is that also, does it also criticize the Christian religion?
I didn't see it there.
Any other religions beside the Wiccan religion?
Well, in
and the other?
Scientology, and I think there were a couple of other sidebars that had additional material.
I don't have anything further. Yeah, maybe I do.
Maybe I do. Oh, I do.
There is some sort of sacrifice in all religions, is there not?
There is.
And can you explain that to the jury?
A sacrifice in contemporary religions is giving up something of personal value, either to the divine as an offering or as a part of a spiritual discipline to get closer to
Tithings,
the
offerings,
divine.
normally.
For example, in Christianity, we will soon be entering the season of Lent, which is a season which people are asked to sacrifice something in order to gain additional spiritual value.
So when
And
we
money,
talk
Irish
about
Rover.
sacrifice, we don't necessarily mean the sacrifice of a body or of a life. We can sacrifice by virtue of giving up alcohol, giving up red meat, et cetera,
Never.
as we
Never.
Lent.
Exactly. And also of offering to the altar things like food and grains and fruits and so on. The most common offerings are the fruits and vegetables and those sorts of things.
Thank you, sir.
Anything further from the state?
No, yeah.
Thank you, sir. You can stay.
Thank you.
If you would, sir, please state your full name for the court and spell your last name for the court reporter.
Dennis Keith Waller, W.
All right, then the other guy gets back on the stand to testify. So that's the Wiccan Minister. I'm depressed and I'm saddened because in the news article that I read before we started this, he was hyped as a Wiccan high priest, whereas he's just a minister. He's very, very educational. I found it very, very educational. Not much to prove he did or did not murder someone, but as many of you were saying in chat, just sort of to the defense probably put him on to remove the fear of Wicca and things like that. Fair enough, I guess. If you need this for the timestamp, we are at 44:20. That's where we will pick up next week. And we got like 3 more weeks and we're done with this. Then we're going to move on to a new trial. All right. Well, there we go. Now there's 198 of you here, 225 likes. And let's close out our poll right now. Let's see how we ended up on our Who Killed the People poll. Currently, and at the end, 5% of you say an unknown stranger killed the people. 12% of you said the weird neighbor dude did it. 19% of you say the defendant, Donald Hartung, committed the murders. And 64% of you said ferrets, obviously. That's where the poll is ending today. All right. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And if you have, as always, double check to make sure. Now let's see where we can send you. Where can we send people? I have to go to see who is available right now. Well, it looks like we can send you to Megan Fox. Megan Fox is going to be addressing the What the Hail's victory as Judge Grudge, Judge DeThomas's, has been officially and formally removed from the case. The appeal was made and they came down hard on him, and he is out. So Megan Fox is just getting ready to start up. So let me get that set up so we can send you on over to Megan. And you're not going to want to miss out. That's going to be pretty darn good. Where are we? Dashboard. Content. Huh. All right. During the course of our stream, ladies and gentlemen, we reached 80,000 subscribers. We are currently at 80,050 subscribers. Wow. We 80,000. We're under 20,000 away from the big play button plaque that's going to go on the wall back there. Wow. Thank you, everybody that subscribed. And please tell your friends. That's pretty awesome. I had no clue, but we picked up quite a few subscribers during the stream. That's pretty awesome. All right. All right. I got sidetracked there. I was surprised by the good news. Let's go to customization, redirect, add. Megan Fox, where are you? MG Law, Moxie Dame, Moxie Dame, Moxie Dame, Moxie Law. Lots of Moxie Dame streams locked and loaded. Why is Megan Fox not available? Weird. Let's type it out. Megan Fox. There we go. August 9th, 9 a.m., 1 a.m. my time. All right, that should be started. She should have started 4 minutes ago, but she'll be there in a minute, I guess. All right, I want to just take this time. Kim Dodge says, damn it, Jeff, I was going to go to sleep. Now I'm going to go see Megan. Congratulations, Jeff, and thank you. Hey, I just want to thank everybody that's here right now, especially for this stream, which is our least watched stream during the week. This is just a chill stream where we hang out and we have a little bit of fun involving older trials. You guys are awesome. I really, really, really have nothing other than that to say. You guys are super awesome. Gosh, I appreciate it so much. Mods, you are awesome. We couldn't do this without all of your moddy goodness. Danielle, what's up, Danielle? Didn't see you sneak in there. What are you doing lurking around there, Danielle? We got our mod Danielle sighting. Xterra Bill is here too. Hey, Xterra Bill, you snuck in on us, all you sneaky mods. And then Joe Choi and Alan Walsh. Alan Walsh, the stirrer. Where would we be? And Joe is throwing down the links. Joe, mod extraordinaire. We've got all our good mods. All of our mods deserve a very healthy and happy round of applause. Well, mods, I couldn't do this without you. You guys are all so awesome. Danielle is like a unicorn. She is. Thank you so much, unicorn. All right, and thank you to you guys in chat for the super chats, the monthly memberships, the gifted memberships, and thank you for just being here in chat, talking to each other, especially on these days here where it's just a little more freewheeling than normal. Couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't want to do it without you, because the Vice Squad chat is hands down, as I say many times every day, the best chat on the entire interwebs. All right, with that, we're going to shut this down here and head on over to Megan Fox. If she happens to show up, let her know that I sent you and say hi, and join me tomorrow at around 1:30 p.m. Eastern for the Karen Reed motion to dismiss hearing. We're going to be doing that live, assuming I wake up. So join me there live for that. And the next Monday, we'll do a Maritime Monday, and we'll be back on track. All right, people, thank you very much. We'll see you. Head on over to Megan Fox. Tell her I said hi, but I'm going to sleep. Take care. Good night, everybody. Bye.